mics are hot and
I've
yet again
seen
we're
that.
talking
I
about
forget where I saw it. I did see there was like a committee that sued themselves. Basically, like one part of it sued the other part of it because they disagreed with how things were going.
you don't have to do that.
I was like, that's just a whole lot of pet. What?
Sorry. That's new.
Chris, we good? Yeah. All right. Super engineer. All set. All right. Time being 7:03, I call to order the Franklin School Committee meeting. Meetings are recorded by Franklin TV and shown on Comcast Channel 9 and Verizon Channel 29, as well as recorded by Franklin Matters. In the middle of the meeting, we will be going into executive session, but then returning for the remaining part of the meeting. All right, and quick announcement, we'll have committee member Aaron Gallagher will be joining us remotely tonight. All right, so now we're going to be having our pledge student, Ollie Williams. Ollie, if you want to kind of come on up to the mic. Ollie is representing Annie Sullivan Middle School by leading the Pledge of Allegiance. This was an easy selection to make because Ollie joins the morning announcements every week to lead the entire school in the Pledge of Allegiance. He has a lot of practice and is excited to be here tonight. Ollie is a 7th grader at Annie Sullivan Middle School and is extremely kind, humorous, and hardworking. Ollie asks very thoughtful questions and truly listens to the answers as he is always trying to learn. Ollie really enjoys computer class with Miss McGee because he gets to learn about coding. He's currently working on a project to create a monster. Ollie has a sister named Skylar and 2 dogs, Abby and Dylan, who he likes to take on walks. Outside of school, he likes to do paperwork and plan things. Ollie is excited to see his new classroom in the new middle school and meet other friends. Mrs. Morrison, Mr. Cox, and Officer Smith are proud to have Ollie represent our school. You can all please rise. Ollie, take it away.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Ollie.
You're welcome.
Now, as is customary, we'll pause for a moment of silence. Okay. And Ollie, if you want to go enjoy the weather, please feel free to. Get out of here. Thank you very much, Ollie.
Sorry. Bye.
Thank you, guys. All right, review of agenda. Agenda look okay to everybody? All right, payment of bills is in order. Payroll, Vice Chair McNeil.
Payroll's in order.
All right, FHS student reps.
We're a little light on representatives today. I don't think it's weather related. I think they're all busy with their AP tests that have occurred beginning last week and this week, so I think they're studying. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. They're at home studying.
All right, so I have a superintendent's report.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I have 3 announcements. I'll start with an Innovative Career Pathways announcement. We are excited to announce that the Franklin High School has been awarded the Innovative Career Pathway designation for Business and Finance and Healthcare and Social Assistance from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Dr. Rogers and Mr. Stark represented Franklin Public Schools at the Massachusetts STEM Summit on May 7th, where Lieutenant Governor Kim Driscoll and Massachusetts Education Secretary Dr. Patrick Tutwiler announced Franklin High School is one of 20 districts receiving a pathway designation for the first time. We want to thank the teachers and the administration for their hard work in receiving this designation. This is a multi-year implementation, and teams will continue to be built out in these career pathways, and we will communicate progress with families and students. So this is work that we set out, if you remember, from the district improvement plan, and the high school school improvement plan had listed this as one of their goal areas. This is evidence of them reaching that goal. It's an exciting opportunity as we look to continue to build out our programming throughout the work, and the state has endorsed these particular pathways, so we saw an opportunity to continue with that. Special shout out to Mr. Stark and Dr. Rogers for their work, in addition to Dr. Weber for their work to make that happen. Next is a special election reminder. So as a reminder to the community, and the town of Franklin will hold a special election on Tuesday, June 3rd, 2025 at Franklin High School. Early voting will be from Friday, May 16th through May 30th at the Franklin Municipal Building, and the ballot question language reads, shall the town of Franklin be allowed to assess an additional $3,800,672,672. I see Mr. Jones in there. He could have read that without even reading it. In real estate and personal property tax for the purposes of the municipal and school operating budgets, for which monies for this assessment would be used for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2025. So more information can be found on the website. At the end of the day, at the gist is, there is a special election on June 3rd, and you can learn more about it by going to the town or school sites, and we'll provide some more information as well regarding that. Finally, and most importantly, and what I'm really excited about, is we have some special guests in the crowd. I want to once again thank our Franklin High School Theater Company for their work. You are aware of this, we've announced it before, and they've been visiting on a little bit of a tour throughout Franklin in many ways, but ultimately they advanced to the state finals of the Massachusetts Theater Guild Festival with their performance of The Yellow Boat, and Franklin was one of 14 schools selected out of the 112 entries statewide. The performance took place at the John Hancock Hall in Boston on March 28th, and it was directed by our FHS alum, Chloe Selznick, and the play was praised for its emotion, precision, and sensitivity, and the company advanced through the preliminary and semifinal rounds before reaching the finals. It was a truly amazing feat. We are very, very fortunate to have such committed and dedicated theater actors in our school, and it just was a testament. So anyone who had a chance to see the play, I mentioned it before we started the meeting, and I've said this before, to be able to invoke emotion, and such strong emotion from so many in 40 minutes from the start to the finish was just truly amazing, and I think it speaks to the beauty of art and what it can do to you when it's done in the way and performed in the way that they made that happen. So it was truly just a tremendous feat. I'll say that through the rounds, they had received many awards. In the state round, playing the role of Eddie, Caleb, I'm gonna try this, okay? Pozvakavambwa, is that correct? Yeah. I love that happened, okay. And for his work, excellence in acting, and the role of Benjamin Aiden Shepard both received excellent acting awards. And excellence in technical theater for the role as movement captains, Sean Sullivan and Eden Donovan. And Stage Manager's Choice Award was Lindsay Callahan. So I just want to give a shout out and a congratulations. There were many awards, and we just are so proud of you for that outstanding achievement. I would love to invite Ms. Selznick up to the microphone along with the theater company. And I'd love for her to make introductions to who is able to join us tonight so that they get their appropriate, accolades. And if you want to say a few words, Chloe, please do. At the end, what we'll do is, I know that I'll kick it over to the chair, but I'd love to take a photo with the whole school committee as well at the end of this portion. So please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Well, thank you guys for having us. It's so special to be able to be here and show our lovely faces to you all, so thank you for the invitation. I really think that METG is one of the best educational experiences that Massachusetts has to offer, especially for these young artists. Being able to see 15 to 20 plays in a weekend is more theater than most people will see in their lives. And they really, we saw a play about math one year, there's plays about real people, social issues, it's really a wonderful experience, and to be able to make it to finals for the first time ever with this particular group has been really special. Everywhere that we went, people would come up to me and stop me and tell me what a wonderful group we have and how amazing Franklin always is. I feel incredibly lucky that I was able to sort of be the representative for this group. They are just a really magical group of kids, and I have a lot of love for them and what they do and what they've given to this year. So thanks, guys. You rock. Here with me now, I have Caleb Paz, who was Eddie in our production, Matt Musa, who was one of the doctors, Aiden Shepard, who was Benjamin, Reese Lorenzo, who was father, Becca Jones, who was our assistant stage manager, Hannah, who was one of our tech crew leaders, and Lindsay Callahan, who was our stage manager.
Thank you. Please
Thank you.
stand, please stay, because I know the committee will, I'll kick it to you, Mr. Callahan.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, this is fantastic. Thank you so much for coming out here today. Just the amazing talent and grit and determination that you all showed to be able to kind of get to where you're at right now is wonderful. I'll open up to kind of comments from my colleagues, and then I'd love, if you don't mind, we'll take a couple of pictures too.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, fantastic. Thank you.
Very well done. You know, I think the coordination of talent really says a lot. It's I think one of the unique situations where you have an opportunity to really shine individually, but it's a matter of when it all comes together and all the pieces, both in front and behind the stage, operating kind of at the highest level to really get you to this point. So congratulations and thank you for all the effort that you've made.
Thank you.
Yep, so to echo my colleague, once again, congratulations, great job. I think of the first time I've heard of MetG, and that was last year when we hosted it, and just to see the growth from last year to this year and just how far the group has gone, is definitely amazing, so kudos to all of you, and keep up the great work.
Thank you.
Again, congratulations to all of you. It's a great job. It's wonderful to see your hard work being recognized, and speaks volumes about all of you as individuals, but also as a group, just all the hard work, determination, and it's the creativity and talent. It's going to take you far wherever you go from here out into the world from Franklin. It's great to see you all just being a wonderful representation of Franklin to everyone who was able to witness your craft. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so I want to apologize because you might have seen I was looking down at my phone, and the reason is because I wanted to find the text message that I sent to our superintendent when you guys were at the town council meeting, because I literally wrote, I have to meet Chloe. She's effing amazing. She killed it at TC tonight. Because I'm telling you, it was so cute when, and Glenn's here, because, you know, Glenn's a big supporter of the theater program, and we have this override pending, right? In June 3rd, everyone, that's when the election is, and that's when we're gonna, you know, support things like the arts. And so there was a moment where Glenn had said, well, you know, do you have any ideas what the next production's gonna be? You know, like in a really enthusiastic way. And you were like, hopefully we'll have one. And I was like, oh my God, that was like, you know, that's how we feel. Like because I'm thinking about it, because, you know, you guys pulled this off without like a ton of support from the town. So we're behind you guys, and we're gonna try and get you what you need. And the consolidation has helped, and keep up the good work. You represent us, make us proud. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations, and I'm proud of you. Myself is a stage artist. I know how much effort we need to put it in towards it. It's a great achievement. Congratulations once again.
Thank
you so much.
And online?
I'm an echo over here. Thank you all so much for coming in tonight. I'm sorry that I'm not there, but congratulations, really incredible job.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Really, thank you. It means so much just for the entire community, and then to kind of come out here as well is wonderful for us here. And so, yeah, if you don't mind, maybe we all kind of come right up in front of here.
I'm just taking a pan off.
Steve Sherlock. I will make it to the website.
Priorities. We got you.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Oh, anytime. They'll make it easy.
say just before we move on to, and it's been great the past couple of months that we've had a lot of wonderful opportunities to kind of celebrate the student achievements here in Franklin. And, Superintendent Shigeta, thank you very much for kind of organizing this. I know it's something we spoke about. It really is, it matters so much to the entire community. And especially to, I hope that you all recognize what great role models that you are to, the kiddos and the students, in middle school and high school. I know we just had the Footlighters putting on High School Musical. There's so many kids that see what you're doing and the hard work that you're putting in and the achievements that you're able to make because of that. And it's just truly inspiring for everybody. So thank you all for the amazing art that you put out into the world, but also just for the role models that you are in this community. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, if you want to get out into the community and peace out, please feel free to. If you want to stick around for a traffic update, though.
That's very exciting.
Really sell it.
On the ground, and I'll see you. You have the floor.
Guys, the Celtic is leaving. I love you. Goodbye. Enjoy the traffic update. Thank you.
Okay, so just as we transition to the next segment, we're joined, Colin Boisvert, Director of Operations, and our town engineer, Mike Maglio, are joining us tonight for the traffic update. This has been long awaited. I know we had done a study. There were some outcomes of that study. I'm excited to share. This is once again another update in the process we've been going through, very strategically, and a lot of thought has gone into this area of study as we've continued to move forward. So without further ado, I will kick it over to Colin to set further context, and then we're happy to answer any questions at the end.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I just want to thank Mike Maglio again for being here tonight to help with any questions or to jump in if he's got anything to add. So tonight's presentation is a traffic study update. It's going to be focused mostly on the beta traffic study that occurred this year. And that beta traffic study is a two-phase study, and we completed phase 1 this year in the 24-25 school year. The traffic phase 1 study included the study of existing conditions, evaluating future conditions, report on the findings, and providing some alternatives. So it really was looking at the traffic flow in and out of each of these facilities and looking how it could be enhanced. So specific information collected in the phase 1 traffic study were vehicle counts at each location, the speed of vehicles traveling, the number of turns in and out of a facility, so what direction of town is traffic flowing from in and out of the facility, looking at queue space that's available. So a queue space is when you enter like an entryway to a school from that point all the way to a drop-off or pickup point. So it's how cars are moving around the facility and the amount of space that's involved with that. So looking at the available queue space with our existing conditions and looking at the queue space that is actually being taken up when cars are actually in it at a drop-off and a pickup scenario. They looked at projections for after reorganization, so we provided them with all the information for the reorganization as far as students moving from building to building, how many students were going to be at each site, how many staff were going to be at each site, and they were looking at how that was all going to work with different alternatives. They also looked at our parking and provided a comprehensive analysis on that, and looked at different alternatives that we could explore to enhance how we could organize traffic flow in the facility, as well as any recommendations for projects. So before we get into phase 2, the district has to make a final decision on what alternatives we want to pursue. This has not been done yet, but it will be done in collaboration with DPW, with town engineering, with facilities and school administration. So once a decision is made, we will move into phase 2, which we will expect will occur during this upcoming school year. The phase 2 beta traffic study will consist of the preliminary designs with each alternative selected, final designs, construction documents, any environmental permitting needed, and a field study. So essentially, it's going to get us all the information that we need to go out to bid for a project like this. If it's going to be a project, we need to do that. This phase 2 will get all of the documentation and plans and everything we need to do that step. So looking into school year 26-27, this is really referring to next summer in 2026. Next summer is really the earliest possible time that any project could occur. We want to make it clear, as we have from the beginning of a lot of conversations about traffic, there's going to be no construction or capital project for traffic over this summer. So some of the information from the beta traffic study, this is the traffic volume. So this is looking at Oak Street, Lincoln Street, and Washington Street, and looking at the number of cars that are traveling between 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. So you can really see where peak times are on travel and how busy different roads are at different times. This is both sides of traffic, and you can really see, the peak time at around 7 o'clock for drop-off and how that, goes up and down through the day. So the school profiles for this slide explains obviously the structure of the district, the grades at each complex, the projected student enrollment, projected number of employees, looking at start time, dismissal time, and early release time. And the only difference with projected or proposed times is a slight shift of 5 minutes at Franklin High School to 7:40 for a start time and 7:15 for a dismissal time. This is only proposed right now. Lincoln Street and Washington Street Elementary for K-2 and 3-5 are going to be starting at the same time, and we are intending to keep the same start times at 8:30 and dismissal time at 2:45. And then Franklin Middle School will right now be keeping its same time as well at 7:20 for a start time and 1:55 for a dismissal time. So looking at the Lincoln Street Elementary Complex, this is the current year in the table. So looking at Keller Elementary and Sullivan Middle, this table shows the number of vehicles dropping off in the morning and picking up in the afternoon, as well as the number of buses and the number of vans that go to that facility each day right now. This shows the queue length that I was referring to, and the map or the overhead shot on the right also shows what the traffic flow is currently looks like and how long of a queue line it actually is. So you can see the queue starts here at the entrance and goes around the visitor's lot, up the main driveway, and then turns around here. This area over here is for buses and vans, and then obviously there's parking around the facility as well. So looking at the future projected information, with the information that was we provided to Beta, they are projecting that 251 vehicles would be dropping off students in the morning, and up to 231 vehicles would be picking up students in the afternoon. We've projected that there will be 11 buses, or up to 11 buses going to this facility, and 6 vans going to this location, which would make a queue length of up to 2,300 feet. So there were many different alternatives that were shown to us in the administration, the traffic team. Tonight, we're only showing the ones that we really felt were feasible as considerations. These are not final decisions. These are just alternatives that we have assessed being feasible. And I'll talk about some of the other ones after I talk about this first one here. This would be a possible capital project for alternative for Lincoln Street. This takes creating a drop-off loop around the field. So you can see the blue arrows would be traffic incoming and red would be leaving. So this would be going around the visitor lot and creating a new drop-off loop that goes around the building, around the field, and then continues on to the existing drop-off area and then turning out. Buses and vans would be in the same location as they currently are, And this creates a good separation for safe drop-off for buses. And it also adds 390 feet for the queue space. So there were many alternatives for all the sites, but particularly at Keller Sullivan, they range from small adjustments to really major ones. So an example of some of the smaller ones that we saw were potentially looking at these island areas and making some travel that this car loop could potentially continue this way and loop over here and out. We didn't really find that one super feasible, as it would create additional oncoming traffic for walkers and pedestrians trying to get in the building. They'd have to walk through 2 travel paths and cross 2 lanes. So it kind of creates a little bit of a safety issue. And it also, with buses trying to get in and out, creates a lot of congestion in this area. So we didn't find that one to be feasible. On the major side of some of the recommendations we saw was creating a road that goes behind the building and hooks up with the access road over there. That would be a major project and would impact the playground in the back, and not only to mention would be extremely costly as well. So not a feasible one as well. There were a few more options in between, and there were a few other configurations that we saw for this facility that included this loop as a bus loop instead of a drop-off loop for parents. But this one we felt was a feasible option that we saw. So looking at the Washington Street complex, you can see the same information for Jefferson Elementary and Remington Middle. The number of vehicles dropping off in the morning and pick up in the afternoon, the number of buses and vans that are currently going to the facility, and what the queue length at the pickup is. And then again, you can see the map on the right shows kind of where the queue length goes to. So for projection for school year 25-26, for Washington Street Elementary, we're looking at 181 vehicles projected for drop-off and 103 for pickup. We're looking at up to 10 buses and 6 vans for pickup, and this would create a queue length at 2,125 feet. So this was one of the feasible alternatives that we saw, and this one is actually very simple and comes at no cost, and it would just be about extending the curb right now. So right now, drop-off and pickup usually stops right around here. So having them use the existing space on the sidewalk would add 125 feet. And again, there's no cost with that as well. Some of the, I'm going to back to this one because it's easier to see on this map. Some of the different alternatives that we saw with this that we didn't feel were as feasible were utilizing this parking lot over here as another drop-off area. So traffic would flow in existing way and then also utilize over here. This parking lot gets a little bit tight, so we're again concerned about student safety going through this parking lot as well. And then it also created a little bit of a bottleneck with buses trying to get in and out, as traffic could be backing up on this way as buses are trying to travel, go through. One of the more drastic ones were potentially to reverse this route, so to enter in where the current exit is and go all the way around and exit through the current entrance. So that actually was a significant project as well, as there's no street light at the end of Lord Way turning in. And again, the infrastructure and the amount of change that would be for the facility would just be astronomical. Another one was looking at going again behind the back of the school and utilizing that space as well. But again, there's a little bit of a grading issue, and again, the playground is there as well. This road is really intended for emergency vehicles and access, so it would be a little bit more of a project to kind of integrate that idea in as well. So looking at Franklin Middle School, this is the current Oak Street and Horace Mann Middle information. Again, vehicles dropping off in the morning, pick up in the afternoon, the number of buses and vans currently going to the site, and the queue length for each site. And you can see the current system is coming in the parking lot here, and then looping around Blue, going in, around here, and then dropping off, and then going out onto Oak Street. So looking at the projection for 25-26 at Franklin Middle School with all the middle schools combined here, we're projecting 304 vehicles at drop-off on 124 vehicles at pickup, 13 buses and 8 vans, and this would be a queue length of 2,300 feet. So possible alternative at Franklin Middle School would be to utilize behind Franklin High School, going around and by the fields. There is a curbing here that could be utilized as a drop-off area. If this was selected, it could add 1,000 feet to the queue in addition to using the existing drop-off system. Another alternative is using the ECDC loop in the back. This would add 800 feet of queue space, and again, combining it with the existing drop-off as it is in the main area as another area. This one would involve determining another new entrance for the back area, and middle school staff would have to look into how to monitor students in that as well versus using the main entrances. They looked at parking, and this table shows the number of parking spots available at each site. The pictures below, you can see an overhead shot of each site and where the parking lots are. We currently have enough parking to meet our needs, and that is enough parking for staff, for visitors, and student parking as well at FHS. So looking at school year 25-26, a little bit of a transportation and solutions update. For transportation, each site has designated spaces to accommodate the required number of buses and vans. We have the capacity to fit all that, and we have the proper traffic flow to maximize buses getting in and out and vans getting in and out of the facility. Franklin Public Schools will continue providing transportation to the YMCA, and this will actually be funded by the YMCA. And if anybody needs more information about the transportation, there was a presentation on March 11th, which is linked to this presentation. To also accommodate more students in for care either before or after school, the Solutions Program is working to clear their wait list. They're doing a variety of measures to clear that wait list, and there's currently no wait list at Washington Street. They are currently interviewing and hiring staff to support program expansion, and they're working with administration to ensure there's adequate space available for their program expansion as well. So we are looking to use some mitigating strategies to address any other traffic concerns for next year. So at the elementary schools, we're looking at dismissal queue staging systems at each school. At Washington Street and Lincoln Street, this will look a little bit differently, but it's essentially how we can get kids ready for dismissal and for arrival to maximize traffic flow. So we're not creating a bottleneck by waiting for students to travel and travel time. So thinking about how to maximize student staging to improve the traffic flow or to keep it going. We'll be implementing adding some enhanced signage and wayfinding around it, just so if you're driving into a facility for the first time, you can clearly understand how you need to move around the facility to get what you need, where you need to go. I kind of mentioned this with the staging, but again, looking how the flow of students going in and out of buildings could be enhanced to maximize traffic flow and not create bottlenecks in drop-off or pickup. The early drop-off opportunity for elementary schools is able to happen, so we're able to offer an additional 15-minute window for parents to drop off students at the school. This will be supervised and will give students an opportunity to get breakfast in the morning or just have some time in a supervised location. Again, that 15-minute window at Lincoln Street and Washington Street will be really critical to help space out some of the traffic flow by adding that time and opportunity. Proposing to lower the bus fee right now in the subcommittee for policy. We are exploring lowering the bus fee from $500 to $387. That could potentially attract more families to sign up for the bus. The added family cap of 3 students could also help larger families be able to afford the bus and may take some cars off of that queue length. And again, we just talked about a little bit about expanding the solutions program, but by offering that expansion and having more space available in solutions, again, we'll kind of keep less cars in the peak times for schools by giving families the opportunity to get that time and care if they need it. So looking at the middle school, that flexed start time for FHS will create a little bit more of a gap for arrival and dismissal. While some people may say it's 5 minutes, 5 minutes is still a lot, and based on the traffic study, it's estimated that 460 feet of queue can be cleared in 5 minutes, so that's a considerable amount of space. So even while 5 minutes may not sound like a lot, that spacing really could make a big difference in the traffic flow. So utilizing, again, some of the possible drop-off locations and potentially additional entrances and exits to the building could kind of space out how traffic is moving around Oak Street and moving around the complexes at the middle and high school to kind of keep things moving quickly. And again, the proposed lower bus fee could also assist in getting some middle school cars off the road as well. So some of the next steps for over the summer, communications will be sent by schools on their arrival and dismissal procedures. So you can expect a communication from your school on what you can expect for arrival and dismissal over the summer. And at the district level, we'll be working with town, DPW facilities, and town engineering to decide some of these alternatives and make some recommendations for future either capital projects or adjustments to traffic flow. And as a reminder, we are not having any construction or capital projects for the summer 2020-25. So, thank you.
All right, terrific. Thank you so much. I know this was a lot of folks have kind of been asking these questions about, you know, when's that beta study going to be coming out, and what are some of those options, especially the mitigating strategy. So thank you so much for all the work that went into this. But why don't we start down here?
It's a great presentation, Colin. Thank you. Do we add any new bus stops for the kiddos to pick it up in the morning, or is it existing ones?
What was the question? I'm sorry.
All the routes?
Oh, the bus routes?
Yeah.
So the bus routes will be developed over the summer. That's a normal occurrence in the month of July. Once registration closes in June, we'll be able to start building routes that will best fit the ridership to maximize the efficiency with that.
What about bus stops? Are we adding any additional bus stops?
Well, that will be figured out as we do the routing with it. So the specific bus stops will be based on where the buses are going and the students who are actually taking the bus. So there could be some changes, there may not be. It really depends on what the actual ridership is.
It's challenging is in Washington Street during the peak hours. So there was a complaint from some parents, like they want in advance, like where the bus stops are.
We'll definitely keep a mind in that as we develop routes.
That's all. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, this is not my base of knowledge, so I feel like good work because this is complicated stuff. The one thing that I will say is it's always been sort of in the public discourse that the drop-offs and the pickups, parents don't always follow kind of the protocol with pulling all the way up and things like that. So I think like part of the strategy next year, I don't know how we communicate to the parents to kind of like, we need their cooperation in this process, because I know, you know.
Yeah, I think you can expect that administrators at the school will be very visible, especially at the beginning of the year, to kind of create that. I think in the communication that goes out, and maybe following communications after that initial one will, it's an adjustment for everybody, and I think as everybody begins to get more comfortable with it and used to it, there'll be improvement as time goes on.
Yeah, I remember a story about Lucas going outside with a blue can of spray paint back in the old days, kind of like pull all the way up.
The blue curbs are everywhere. That's
Yeah.
So
just
through the chair, to point out, I think it's an opportunity for us to reset, and there will be mitigating strategies that are still developed that will help us to reset expectations for all on where parking happens, what the flow is, depending on the decisions that are made. So recognize there's also trade-offs. I just wanted to point out, Colin, we talked about this, a trade-off to having your elementaries start at the same time is having that queue. And I said this at a few previous meeting, but I've been fortunate enough to be able to drop off at occasion at JFK, at Horace Mann, and at Franklin High School. And I want everyone, we can't have amnesia about the fact that right now when you converge on a school, you do wait in a queue and you do come off of the road. Our goal is to optimize, just like with routes, try to optimize so that we don't make situations worse. But I think with the right strategies and the things that Colin talked about around mitigation and having a better plan, we also need to really be thoughtful around continuing to observe in the fall, what are the actual implications as we move forward before we commit funding or money. But we've done the work and study up to this point. Now let Mr. Maglio speak to a little bit about, we've gotten ahead of the process so that we're queued up and teed up to make some decisions for the future. But ultimately, without knowing the actual impacts for the fall, there's still some unknowns, the number of riders on a bus and whatnot. So I just want to reiterate what you mentioned, Colin, around those ideas. So.
And and for those who don't know what I'm talking about, it's the parents that want to drop their kid off right in front of the door instead of pulling it all the way up so all the parents can let their kids out at once. So, a lot of road rage in that queue sometimes. I see people, I see parents getting fired up. So, I'm lucky because my kids walk. So, but that's all. It's a great presentation. I know it's a lot of work. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and to the entire team, thank you for all this work and put this presentation together. I know this is certainly a matter of great interest in the community in terms of the entire process, and so I think this information is wonderful that we have that, and taking a look at all these alternatives as well. And so I guess a question just to reiterate or clarify. So regarding the alternatives, so like what we're doing is essentially taking a year to see how things work now, and then assessing to see what the best way to move forward is for the future, correct?
Yeah, we're planning out what makes the most sense, and definitely don't want to make a rush decision with a project like this, make a permanent change and not have it be the right move. Anything you want to add to that?
Sure, Mike Maglio, town engineer. So last year when everything started and there was talk about reorganizing all the schools, Lucas reached out and got us involved early. So we met with the facilities department, Lucas and his team out in the sites, look at all the existing conditions, what the changes are going to look like. We brought in our traffic consultant. We had him there like 2 days later, got everything started. We had a jump start in doing some initial traffic data collection. They came on board, did a lot more, did all the analysis. There's a lot of different alternatives we looked at. As Colin pointed out, we come down to the ones that seem to make the most cost-effective sense. I mean, you can build anything with enough time and money, but we want to make sure that what we're doing things are prudent and going to get the most effect out of it. So we've narrowed it down to what we really think is going to be the best fit. But I think a big key is what Lucas and Colin have done as far as coming up with the operational strategies to really improve traffic flow at the schools for next year. Going to make a big difference. And then we can really see, when we look at all the analysis, we're building models and trying to project out what things are going to look like. It usually gets pretty close, but it's never exactly what's going to happen. So having a chance to see the actual operation next year and just validate what we are thinking of doing before we do invest in a lot of money in some of these capital improvements, I think is a prudent way to go. So as we go through the process, and we might be able to tweak those a little bit too. And plus, one of the biggest challenges too is just this is all public construction. So we'll have to design some of these improvements. A lot of them will need environmental permitting. We'll have to go through the public bid process and hire contractors to do some of the major stuff. So there is a lot to it. So I think the most prudent way is this approach. And like I said, the operational changes they're looking to make, I think is going to make a big difference too. Really kind of help narrow down, fine tune what we're looking to do out there.
Excellent. Thank you for getting into that detail. I just think it's great for all of us and for the community to know that this was very well and thoroughly thought out, and will continue to be a very well and thoroughly thought out process as we assess what the best way forward is for the future of the district and the transportation. I think it's great for us to know that all these different scenarios and possibilities were looked at, and now we're kind of winnowing them down, and we'll see how things work out practically, and then continue to go from there. So thank you, Mike, and your team. Again, thank you, Colin, and your team, and we really appreciate this. Is great for us to know, and we yeah, I look forward to kind of seeing how it all shakes out over the course of the next couple of years, so thank you.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Yeah, so definitely looking forward to this, and enjoying or appreciate the detail. I do have questions though. The phase one alternatives, so you mentioned once a decision is made on the alternatives, then we'll move to phase two. Do we have timing on like when those alternatives, we'll decide which alternative we want to go with, or?
Well, I think we're looking at the alternatives. We're working with the team, you know, the town engineer, the DPW, and facilities. And as we, you know, are approaching the school year start, we'll take into consideration what's going on. You know, at the beginning of the year, we'll begin to build those into a plan, because we need to be sure what we're putting forth for the phase two for them to start doing all that work.
Mm-hmm.
We want to make sure we have the right answer for all that.
Gotcha, okay. And then, so there's some things that aren't a cost, like the Washington Street, extending it to the curb, like things like that we can do in advance, right? We're not waiting on
Correct,
that.
yeah. Anything that has no cost to it and we can work within our current facility, if we assess that's something we're going to do for this year, it will be communicated over the summer in an arrival and dismissal communication from our principal.
Okay, perfect. You mentioned the early drop-off. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that? Because I think folks would love.
Yeah, sure.
More about that.
You want to
Sure, so just to zoom out big picture, Beta does this traffic study, Colin assembles a team, so Mike Maglio, town engineer, Brutus Canreggi's there as the DPW director, Mike D'Angelo, facilities director, Kevin Hahn, assistant, Colin, director of operations, me as superintendent, 4 Beta people, a part of their team, are meeting at first to kind of go through the data and walk through. Then we took that information and we met with a sub-team, I don't mean that like, but I mean like a different group. We took the information from that and we met with the school resource officers because they have eyes on our facilities all the time and they're looking at it. So we looked at it from a school safety perspective. In that team, we also included all of the assistant principals and principals of the elementary and secondary level and held meetings to show, and those included administrators who are currently living in those spaces. So Franklin Middle School being at Horace Mann, you have Horace Mann representation living in it now to kind of add all those perspectives. So just to zone out on kind of the big idea of who was involved in kind of these pieces. To go back to your question, which I forgot, Al.
The early drop-off opportunity?
Yeah, so the early drop-off, when we met with the elementary particularly, we talked about this idea. So we'll have solutions program running in the morning and the afternoon. You heard one mitigation strategy is to clear the queue of wait list of people. Patty Gay is working very closely with Colin and me to hire and in segments start to clear the queue at Lincoln Street. We've worked very closely with the YMCA, as Colin mentioned, they are going to be providing their own transportation to and from the Y for the students that do register there. So these are all things that get kids either on a bus or after school and kind of are a mitigating factor. The early drop-off was right now, the doors open at our elementary schools at 8:15. And that's when they're kind of consistently 8:15 open the door. The principals at the elementary schools have said if we were to able to open those doors at 8 o'clock and allow people into the cafeteria, students, have it supervised for that 15-minute window, all the doors would open at 8:15 like they normally do, and people could enter into the class. So there wouldn't be an impact on the staff as they enter the building, but we would be 15 minutes ahead of time in the cafeteria with breakfast, allowing students to go there, but it wouldn't impact the normal school operations. But if you think about in a 15-minute window, people being able to drop off if they are driving to get in, a lot of parents are have to wait. They pull up and have to wait in there until 8:15 before they can drop off. I remember those days. So I think that's an option and a mitigating strategy. The other thing I would mention is we call it a forward observer in the Marines. I don't know what you call it in a school. But the folks that are out at the lot with an iPad who are getting ahead. At Jefferson does this, they have the system in place, and credit to Ms. Wasick and Ms. Murray, but they have a system where there's a teacher or an educator out in the queue who is typing in the name of the family that's in the queue and it's populating on a screen live in the classroom so that the students know to kind of make their way down. If we were to, we've talked about having that become a district-wide strategy. All of these things combined, I think, help us mitigate, what we can expect. And it was a trade-off to say, hey, we're going to have, it just makes sense to have your family enter K through 5 at the same time and not have 2 different start times. That just would have been chaotic. But the flip side is leaning into some mitigating strategies. With all those things implemented, Beta didn't assume those. So when they do a test, they're looking at it straight up from cars, number of people, who we project. They don't factor in a 15-minute early drop-off, the number of kids who might go to Solutions, the YMCA having a bus. They're not thinking about that when they calculate. So I think that's why in the fall, when we put eyes on, are these mitigating strategies even working? We should be reassessing so that when we have to get in front and ask for money related to a project, we've really vetted it out. And obviously you would be first to hear about the progress of that as we would want to move through that queue. So I hope that answers the early drop-off, but also wanted to add a little more clarity on some of the other things that were mentioned tonight.
Yes, it does. Thank you. And then made me think of another question. Sorry.
Yep.
It was with phase 2. So do we know roughly like how long phase 2 would last? Like how, in terms of, yeah.
So basically, as we go into the next school year and the operational adjustments are made, and we'll start the design process early on, but watching the actual operations will also modify some of the design as needed to that. It'll take some time, a couple months to do the design. We'll have the preliminary design, final design. Like I said, a lot, like especially on Lincoln Street, there's most likely going to be a lot of environmental permitting. That'll take some time too, and we want to be in a position to go out to public bid and get that lined up to get ready for the construction season during the summer when the schools are empty. It's a really short window, so I mean, ideally, as we move forward, I mean, the design process is probably going to start up pretty soon, like or maybe even before the as the school year begins, maybe a little bit before, survey, that sort of thing, start putting things down on paper. But it will take several months. So the goal will be to start as the school year starts and have everything ready to go out to bid for construction, and having a contract award so they can start as soon as school gets out, or even kind of overlap a little bit depending on the scope of the work.
Gotcha. So. Okay, thank you. Yeah, I know it's like tight, all like the moving parts to it. So
I mean, that's when we first met towards the beginning of the school year, and we started talking about things, and had Beta come on board. By the time they completed the analysis, just looking at the calendar and schedules, like there's just not enough time to be in a position where we could start construction now, because with the environmental permitting, with all the design process and the public bid process, it just takes time. So we'd be looking to start that probably within the next couple of months as things progress.
Cool, thank you. And then wrapping up, sorry. So just want to reiterate, so bus or school start times, with the exception of high school, are remaining the same, and we're proposing a 5-minute delay for high school for start and drop at school times, correct?
Correct.
Okay, cool. I think that was like a big thing when we heard redistricting. Everybody was like, hey, what's going to happen? Do I have to have 2 different drop-offs for K to, the younger group and then the 3 to 5 group? So I think that because the families were wondering about that one. And then suggestion, and then one question. So do we have a plan? So I'm just thinking back when I had kids in elementary school and drop off, and our routine was like, got in, told the kids like, get your bags ready, get to be right at the door. So we stopped, and it's like, all right, get out and like tuck and roll pretty much. Have you, I don't know if it makes sense to maybe like have like a video that somebody can watch and just like, hey, these are the best practices to get out of the car. Because you see, you're as Ruth Ann, you mentioned about the road rage, you see parents are just like giving their kids hugs and kisses and like telling them a story and all this stuff, and it's like 10 minutes later, it's like, hey, let's go. They gotta go to school. So I don't know if it's just some.
It's really funny you mentioned that. That reminds me of how we were doing the composting at schools, and we had to train students to sort your tray before you go to the trash, so you know which one's going where. It makes me think of that.
Yeah, no, and I think it's effective because I mean you can talk about it, but I think if you have like a 30-second video of like, do this, how to get out, versus like, don't do this. It's like putting on your shoes at the car and like putting your jacket. It's like 10 minutes later, it's like you're late for school, but you got here early. Just something. It'd be fun and it's very creative. And I bet you could find a family to be like, hey, yeah, I'll have my kid act and pretend do's and don'ts.
I think you should adopt a tuck and roll policy. just go right.
Exactly. I mean, give them some marine training, right?
2 miles an hour.
But and then my last question, I know bus sign up is going to be huge in terms of success. Do we know if we're trending at a higher clip, lower clip than we expect?
Well, it's still early, obviously, but we definitely have about 35%-ish of what we were expecting at this point. So I'm sure we'll get more. There will be a communication going out later this month as a reminder, but I know a lot of families too were waiting for a variety of reasons like FHS parking and the charter school enrollment and things like that, and other factors around like care as well. So
Gotcha.
I would expect an uptick as a lot of that seems to be resolving around now.
Cool. And folks remember, was it June 20th
Yes.
deadline?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Thank you. All set.
Thank you. Thanks for that plug.
All right. So, appreciate Mike, definitely joining us, Colin, as always, the efforts to try and organize a lot of complex things into a seemingly simple presentation. I don't know, we kept it down to just a few slides, but there's really a lot of things packed in here, so I appreciate that. So first and foremost, looking at the costs associated with designs, redesigns, permitting, those kind of things. I know we kind of glaze over that. There's a lot of, we understand there's going to be costs associated with all this. Obviously, you think of the capital projects themselves as having a significant cost, but do we have this accounted for either in capital requests from town council, things kind of teed up, or somewhere in our budget to be able to make sure that we're not getting like halfway into the design process and then kind of run out of funds?
I can answer that. So I would say two reasons we wouldn't do this project. We don't have the money right now. That's what I'd say in my house. We're not doing the driveway because we don't have the money right now. But at the end of the day, we don't have that now. But however, if we look historically at what the district, and you're very well aware of what the district has received for capital allotments, I think that the scope of the cost, I think some of the ones that we've deemed unfeasible were just untenable and would not be a realistic goal. But there are some of the alternatives that they did that were in the scope of, within the framework of what could be acceptable to request for capital. The other thing is we have to see in the fall with all the mitigation and the early drop-off and all the things that we've already discussed, is a construction project necessary, or are there, are things working? I'm not suggesting it is, and I don't want to downplay, but I'm just putting out, there's like multiple scenarios here. So depending on the scope of it, some of the mitigating strategies with the construction, there are kind of larger construction alternatives and smaller ones. So I think it's going to come down to, but how we would account for that cost would be either through a capital request or a borrowing type situation. We have not had any discussion about that particular piece. We've only based this on the projects. Capital being usually for one-time type purchases or larger purchases within the district. This would be something that if we felt it was appropriate and necessary, we would have to prioritize within that. So that's how we have been framing the work and how that would be funded. We'd have to go through that process and seek approval.
And to verify too, I would want to verify this, but I believe that the phase two part of the study was covered under the initial capital request for the beta study. So yes, I think we're okay for that, but I want to verify that.
Fantastic. But I think the key point there is that the thoughts have already happened. It's not just,
right.
We know there's going to be costs. We haven't accounted for it. It was really, there's been a lot of foresight here and getting things getting all the ducks in a row ahead of time. The other thing I want to call out that I saw actually earlier today, somewhat related, somewhat unrelated, is that we did just get the AAA bond rating. So just a shout out to the town. I know there's a lot of effort behind that. It does help us a lot in this kind of situation. So for all of those who shout about fiscal responsibility, doesn't get a whole lot better than that. We're better than the U.S. at the moment as a whole. So just wanted to kind of make that quick shout out. So into some of the details. So I appreciate the conversation around the early drop off. I think that definitely is something that's going to be very interesting for folks. Looking at the actual layout, so if we can go to slide 5 real quick. So one of the things I notice here, is that we have, and this is also in the current, like the pickup from Keller and pickup from Sullivan, it all weaves through that visitor lot. I know at Kennedy, we have a significant number of parents come, they park, they grab the kids. I'm not entirely sure what it's gonna be at Lincoln. But one of my concerns would be if we have people looping through that lot, is that we basically gridlock that lot where any of the parents that are trying to come in and come out with their students aren't able to. Do we have another system in place or another location for those parents to go? Or is that just not something that we're anticipating, having basically parents come park and pick up their kids?
So you talking like park in the lower lot, or?
Yeah, so we have it tagged as a visitor lot, that lot at the top right corner of the image. So if that's, I don't know what the setup is gonna be at Lincoln. Again, at Kennedy, some of the parents, if they're coming to pick up their kids or if they're walking, let's say there's bad weather, you'll come and you'll pick up they basically stop in that little parking lot right out front.
You're asking about parking.
Walk in, pick up the kids, or let's just say you have an early doctor's appointment, you're there and you're like, great, I can get out, and all of a sudden you're blocked in for the next 20 minutes. Do we have kind of a way around that?
Well, I think there's some visitor spots right up here in this area, isn't there?
There's
Or
some
those-
handicap parking
there's some
there.
handicapped.
The staff parking on the backside. If you drop that pointer down towards the baseball field area, the extension over there is where often you'll see more spots. That is a pretty full lot with 575 right now at Keller and 360, Sullivan, I think currently. So the lower lot, we were factoring into also not just for like drop-off visitor in that example, but actually being a parking spot for a staff member, for folks that would be assigned a different parking lot. So some of those things are being worked out, but I think your point around who's parking down there for short pickup, drop-off, these are considerations that we've talked about around, is that a better spot for someone who's not looking to get out at the time of dismissal or arrival, who's
Yeah.
already in the building?
And
So,
then looking at parking too, we're still at peak time projecting to be only at 63% full. So
Okay.
that still leaves an adequate amount of space that we could still allocate appropriate spots for visitors.
So we'd put like visitor tags on or something of that sense.
at the
Okay.
high school, we have a visitor section that we just segment off, and it's very clear that that's, and then staff get assigned to lots at the high school. So we've talked about that as well. Does it make sense to be strategic while we have a chance to kind of reset, to be really thoughtful around the number, we can anticipate the number of staff we're employing, how many spots we need for them to park, and then where are the other areas in which people who were pulling in to be a visitor for those exact reasons, picking up someone sick, or it happens to conflict with drop-off. I know I've arrived at Annie Sullivan right at their dismissal sometimes, and I drive up the road and I find my way, but I'm not cutting the line for pickup, but I'm kind of making my way to the back corner where I pointed. It's a little spot. I probably expose that to the whole town now, so there won't be any parking there, but that is a spot that I've used. But yeah, good question.
And actually, Mike, this kind of follows on to something for you, is if we were to do something like that where we were to mark the lot, spaces or kind of designate certain areas, is that something we'd be able to do this summer? I don't know what the cost of the workload would be like to basically go out and just kind of stencil, like painting.
So, and like we talked too, like some of these, the different alternatives, like major construction projects, some of the schools are gonna be simple, like a little painting, maybe some signs. Painted signs are pretty easy to do, so that's not a big lift. A lot of times we can do stuff like that in-house. So stuff like that's not that big. It's like the major construction, when you start ripping up, paving new areas, things like that, were really kind of the tricky ones. Drainage improvements, things like that. If it's a matter of just some better signing, trying to direct people, better traffic flows, things like that, those are easy lifts.
Great, okay, awesome, thank you. So then the couple other points. So for the middle school, I just did want to call out, again, making sure that people notice that this is how things were said, that this would be a point that is in addition. So this is slide 10. Looking at the additional section, basically moving off, coming down behind the high school, being an additional opportunity, not something where everyone has to go there. Basically, it's the idea of people are coming from very different parts to this campus. Instead of everyone having to converge right in front of the school, you're able to kind of move your way around, come in from behind the high school and then leave back through that same exact area where you have minimal traffic and traffic lights helping you out. Or if you're coming from the other side of town, you can basically kind of continue what you've been doing anyway and navigating in kind of through the front of the school. With this, is this something I didn't see kind of on here? Do we have a significant cost associated with this, or would this really just be kind of a signage and we could theoretically implement this pretty quickly?
This one would be pretty quick. I think the one recommendation with this one would be to put a crosswalk in. But other than that, there's curbing, there's adequate space to be a drop-off area. There's no significant construction that needs to happen for this or cost.
So is this something that we would see if we could feasibly do for the coming year,
Yes.
or do we think that it really couldn't be?
This particular setup, because there's no like heavy road construction, is really a management and operations mitigating strategy. We did talk about with the police, they had talked about some of the way the high school the traffic flows currently. There are some areas that, while we're looking at everywhere in the district, and if we're looking specifically at the middle school, we should put fresh eyes on the high school and the flow of traffic. So they have some thoughts around how we can mitigate, and ultimately we'd want to communicate that out and have signage that supports. But specifically, I appreciate you calling attention to what you noticed, Dr. Griffith, because ultimately you'll notice you have the regular lot where currently Horace Mann families drive through currently. You also have the ECDC, to your point around coming from St. Mary's, if you're heading to, but you don't want to drive down and get into the mix, you could go and take a left into the ECDC and utilize their loop. We've met with the ECDC, so their pickup and drop-offs don't conflict. And it's a matter of a quick drop-off to kind of get people in but out without converging, keeping Oak Street open.
Yeah, everything's fine, it's just a distraction.
All right, that's okay. And the high school, to your point, coming off the highway or cutting across town that way, so.
Okay.
Yeah, but I do think we have an opportunity to also put fresh eyes on what's the best direction for all this to flow now that we're thinking about this in this way.
Sounds good. And that might be a great opportunity there for spray paint on the curb. Let people know
Yes.
exactly kind of that section where you actually want them to stop, and then all the bright spray paint where they shouldn't, and people will ignore you. But it's just a thought, but I do think this will be something that would be really helpful, especially this year. This coming year, as everyone is learning something new.
Sure.
Perfect time to say, great, learn something new once, and then just be out there and watch and kind of giggle and see how well we all can follow street signs. I think it would be an adventure. I did also want to just comment briefly. I know that it was mentioned, and I think Colin, you mentioned it accurately. I wanted to highlight it because I feel like sometimes people pick their favorite thing that you say and they ignore the rest. The bus fee reduction is something that we are exploring in policy. I'm not in it, not on it. God bless. But it is something that we are looking at as part of a successful override.
Yes.
Not as something that we can just readily fund, and actually, in a lot of the documents that have been shared, talking about the override, talking about the need for it, and how it is basically fixing a structural deficit that already exists in the town. We do highlight the fact that a lot of these big goals that we have, including reducing fees for athletics and other activities, in addition to the busing and things like that, doesn't happen in a vacuum. It is really contingent on us having enough funds to also be able to support the school and the educators and the systems that we have in place right now. So I did want to make sure you did say it correctly. You said it right off the bat, but I want to make sure that people knew that bus fee reduction we're talking about is really something that's contingent on success on June 3rd. Again, June 3rd, I know everyone over there can only mention it once, and the day, I'm not bound by those things. So June 3rd, the override vote, that is the opportunity to really voice if you want to see, the same kind of successes that we have now and the opportunity for those reduced fees for transportation, which will help us succeed more and more with the overall transportation concerns, getting more of the students on buses, getting them dropped off and transported in an efficient manner, instead of all of us hanging out in our cars, waving and honking when we insist on pulling up to the front of the school. So outside of that, I think you covered things quite well. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Just point of clarification, the policy subcommittee had discussed bus fees. You did have a pretty thoughtful discussion around the bus fees in general, separate of clubs, activities, fees for ECDC. Just could those be adjusted as part of our strategy around traffic with or without the override. So I think I just wanted to note for the policy subcommittee, and feel free to weigh in, but just wanted to point that out to your point. A healthy budget and a budget that's supported and we solve a structural deficit, it's a no-brainer. But certainly this was part of a conversation that they had. Just for the record of the conversations that were occurring in policy was around specifically buses with the fee and trying to keep ridership up if it was a mitigating strategy as part of it. So that was just in context, but
Yeah, and
your point is still well taken on the need, for us to solve our structural deficit.
I appreciate the clarity.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
why I caveated that I'm not
Yep.
there. They
Yes, of course.
Can't speak for them, so they have all
Right.
kinds of other adventures, but thank you.
if I may too, I just to be clear, because I don't want it to be at all confusing to anybody who's tuning in. There's no, well, I shouldn't say no because it's going to be a vote, but there's really no discussion about reducing fees if this override fails. But with transportation, and I mean around sports and clubs and things like that, with transportation, what we saw was a decrease in ridership that was significant enough that we were considering lowering it even if the override fails. So just transportation, because we lost so many riders that it actually hurt us and may or may not have been attributed to the fees. There's a lot of circumstances, so it's still up in the air. But I want people to know that relative to the other fees, yes, 1,000,000% contingent on this override. The buses is just a unique thing because the ridership went down so much. So that's why that's a little bit of a caveat, just transportation. Yeah. But, I'm not, if this
Just
override
further
fails, I'm not
analysis.
looking to get rid of teachers, So I would rather keep these fees be horrible, but.
If I may too, I know in a little while, we have a whole agenda item too about
Oh,
the
right,
structural
yeah.
deficit.
Okay.
And, but
Thanks.
so we can also kind of continue those
Yeah, yeah.
conversations too. Thank you.
Thanks.
And online?
Yeah, I think most of my questions had been covered, but really just thank you to Colin and Mike and everybody who's been involved in this whole traffic study process. It really goes a long way. I know, especially with the elementary families, all that's been done to really mitigate the traffic at drop-off time, make it easier for families to coordinate schedules, and have a successful morning and afternoon. So thank you very much for all the information, and we're looking forward to what more will come as we head into summer.
Fantastic. And so, just a few things myself, I can kick it off with a softball. Day one, first day of school, do you anticipate perfection?
No.
Trying to set the bar high, but, Superintendent Gear, I'm glad you kind of talked about like that amnesia, aspect. Everybody kind of needs to understand where we are today as it relates to now where we're going. When Paul and I were just at the Kennedy auction just last Friday, and a quick shout out too for all the PCCs running the great these fundraisers and organizations. It's fantastic, and for the community, continue to kind of go and invest in your schools through these years, this year as well. But when they kind of during the Kennedy auction, MCs kind of jumped up and sort of made a joke about for how long Kennedy has been doing their looper strategy, just how many folks still haven't adapted and still don't know exactly where to go, where to drop the kids off. To Al's point, do you do the tuck and roll, or do you have completely decompress and talk about your day before you move off to the side? Answer, no, you don't. You don't have that conversation, you keep things rolling. But so that a lot of that stuff exists today. As a director of operations say, it's not gonna be perfect on day one, but I really appreciate all the mitigating strategies you currently have in place and a lot of the thought that's going on into this to see what can be done with little to no capital investment, which is fantastic. And also, and I really appreciate too, just the idea of living in it as well and figuring it out. Let's, let the kids kind of go, the families drop off and figure out where we're gonna go from there. I mean, there's this story of this college president who kind of comes on in right as the college and university is gonna go, and they're gonna design these walkways and spend a whole bunch of money. And the president says, hold off, give it a year. And because what ends up happening is the students go and they start walking around campus and they find out the most optimal strategies. And then once those walkways are defined by the students, all right, this is the pathways to make. These are the roads to kind of pave. And so I kind of get that same feeling with this as well. Let's let the families go. Let's not, start to spend $500,000 in capital that, Superintendent Jacuti, your comment that we just don't have out of fear, anxiety, or worry about what may happen. But instead, let's go, let's live this, let's try to do the best that we can, adopt Al's tuck and roll policy, and try to make the best of this. And then one other question too, in terms of some of these alternate plans, just to be clear, are you anticipating on implementing them halfway through the year? Or is it gonna be, we're gonna have one plan and one traffic flow in September, and that's gonna kind of carry us forward to June, and then redevelop in phase 2 for the next school year?
I think minor tweaks could probably occur during the school year, but anything major would not.
Yeah.
Perfect, no, that's what I want to hear. So, thank you very much. Lastly, actually, when we, this colleague was kind of talking about in terms of the bus routes and the, once the bus routes themselves have kind of been defined, can we also make sure that that gets out to the wider community, not just kind of the families, but, because it's going to change up everyone's commute to work as those buses are going in different directions. So as much as we can kind of go and advertise, toss it on Franklin Matters and elsewhere, I think would be fantastic. And then was there?
Yeah.
Mr. Tuck and Roll.
Yeah, could I get a formal recommendation for a tuck and roll policy?
We'll, we got our attorney here, we'll run it by legal, and we'll see what
My kids have their backpack, I'm like, get your backpack on, take off your seatbelt, I don't care if we're still rolling, that's how I go through the nine, so I'm with you, Al.
We're there doing God's work.
But fantastic, thank you so much, and I really also appreciate just the partnership that we're having from the town and the schools. I mentioned this in the last town council meeting. It's been fantastic to see everybody kind of coming together and working on this. This is a massive endeavor. It's once in a generation kind of redistricting and reorganization process, and it's been amazing to kind of see everybody just bring their A game at every single point, but also build these wonderful relationships between all the different departments. So thank you all so much. Really appreciate that.
So, thank you, Mike. I know that there hasn't been a time in my time over the last 2 decades where I haven't made a phone call to the DPW or to Mike specifically, and he hasn't called back within 2 hours or sent an email, and he's been super responsive. And Colin is actually establishing his own relationships and his own ways of working with people and bridging some of this, and we've benefited from both, and we appreciate the partnership. So thank you for saying that, Dave. More to come on this. More specifics around kind of the school-based decisions. We will work with the leadership teams at each school and really look at next year. I'll just leave you with this. Franklin High School, brand new, gets built. They design a brand new building with the traffic in mind. And I'm out there as an assistant principal, first day of school, first day it even opened. And it was a 45-minute drop-off. Yeah. And I was hearing it from the community out that day. We didn't have any blue curbs at the time. But I just remember the first day of school in the first few weeks, people were dropping off their children just as part of I want to get a feel for it. It's a new school. I want to put eyes on it. I want to see, I want to see how it goes. The traffic started to subside over time. We got better at training. People got used to where to come in and where to go out. They picked their spots around a building. I think you do that naturally. And, within about 2 to 3 weeks, we saw it kind of subside and be what it is today. So I think to your point around first day of school, I don't think that's going to be the true indication of kind of how we flow and work together to train ourselves on the best ways to get in and out, and we'll make sure that we have the right signage and wayfinding. So thank you for that question and comment. Okay.
Thank you guys very much. Thank you. Great night.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, so now in a little twist, we're going to go into executive session. At this point in the meeting, we will be returning back to finish out the rest of the meeting. But as per Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21(3), we're going to executive session and discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares. Is there a motion to go into executive session?
Motion to enter executive session.
Second?
Second.
All right, discussion, debate. Do a roll call vote. Brooker?
Yes.
Charles?
Yes.
McNeil?
Yes.
O'Sullivan?
Yes.
Stompoli?
Yes.
Gallagher?
Yes.
And Callahan, yes. All right, we'll be back soon. Sign up for the bus.
WFPRLP Franklin on 102.9 FM. listening to 102.9 WFPRLP, Franklin Public Radio. This is WFPRLP Franklin on 102.9 FM. You're listening to 102.9.
Get Aaron back on?
Yeah, I'm here.
I'm gonna move through this next section pretty good.
Chris, are we back online? Yes, you are. All right. All right, time being 8:59, we're resuming to May 30th, Franklin School Committee meeting. I was going to do a quick roll call here. Griffith?
Here.
Charles?
Here.
McNeil?
Here.
O'Sullivan?
Here.
Sonpali? Gallagher?
Here.
And Callahan here. All right, terrific. So on to discussion action items.
Okay. So there's 2 votes for discussion action tonight. These are annual appointments, so we've done these in the past. If you've been on the committee, all of you have, you were here last year. Basically, the first, they're Accept and BICO. These are our collaboratives, and I serve on your behalf as a member of their board of directors. So I serve in a role similar to yours at school committee, but for oversight with local superintendents, all representing our district. So I'll just do both votes, and we can take them one at a time. The chair recommends the appointment of Lucas Jaguar as BICO board member for the 25-26 school year as discussed.
All right, is there a motion?
Move to appoint Lucas Jaguar as BICO board member for the 2025-2026 school year as discussed.
Is there a second?
Second.
What kind of draw? All right, questions, comments?
No questions.
I like seconds.
All right, seeing none, vote will come on a motion. Roll call, Griffith?
Yes.
Charles?
Yes.
McNeil?
Yes.
O'Sullivan?
Yes.
Sonpali?
Yes.
Gallagher?
Yes.
And Callahan, yes.
The chair recommends the appointment of Lucas Jaguar as accept board member for the 25-26 school year as discussed.
All right, is there a motion?
Move to appoint Lucas Jaguar as the accept board member for the 2025-2026 school year as discussed.
Second?
Yes, second.
Questions, comments? All right, roll call, Griffith?
Yes.
Charles?
Yes.
McNeil?
Yes.
O'Sullivan?
Yes.
Sonpali?
Yes.
Gallagher?
Yes.
And Callahan, yes. Thank you very much, Lucas.
Thank you. Thank you for the appointment. I'll represent you with honor and integrity. Thank
No
you.
doubt. All right, discussion-only items.
Okay, so we have 3 discussion-only items. The first is the follow-up discussion to the Horace Mann naming discussion that you previously had. So we've included it back on the agenda. Mr. Callahan, I'll kick it over to you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we had, I know, there was some folks that kind of reached out, just wanted to kind of continue on this conversation about kind of like the direction, if this is something that we kind of move forward with. But additionally, this is, you know, one of those, one of the few items that we've kind of taken that's not necessarily directly originated from the superintendent. You know, like the reorg, like so many other plans, it kind of comes from there and it seeks out our approval. This is really something that we've kind of discussed and has originated kind of from within us. So if it's something that we do wish to kind of move forward on, I know we've had a lot of great discussions about that. We will be something, basically kind of use this opportunity to discuss action plans. You know, what's something that we're gonna look to say, you know, to Superintendent Jaguar, this is what we would like to see done, and, you know, then we would kind of vote on that green light, just as in the same fashion we kind of gave the green light for the reorganization. But I just wanted to keep it in that discussion action item, so that way folks who did kind of have some extra questions or input from last meeting can kind of do that, and then we can also kind of come up with that concise but narrow, you know, action plan that we would then kind of flip to Lucas, so he can kind of put something together that then would kind of come back to us with approval to vote on the idea of the Horace Mann campus. So with that, we'll kind of, any kind of questions or comments?
Yeah, you know, so, you know, I think this has been a really important set of conversations, and, you know, I've appreciated the kind of approach that we've been looking to take. I think that it's great to make sure that we have an opportunity to honor the Horseman name. I think it is something that has been, really running through our heads for a while. Through this entire process, it's been something that's been, been at the forefront of our thoughts. I think approaching it from the concept of the land that the schools are on and an area that can be really dedicated to honor Horseman's name is a good approach to take. It's kind of forward thinking on a couple of different fronts. As I'd mentioned the other week, the Horseman name used to be on multiple buildings in town, including a school, before the middle school. It rotated off. It's kind of just fallen by the wayside in a lot of different instances. And part of that is because as times change, people have different opinions as to kind of someone new to honor or a new way to look at things. And I think looking at a campus, with the idea that actually town council's letter, again, as I mentioned earlier, I really appreciated, as they suggested, really kind of, between wayfinding and between kind of structural and signage and having some kind of, memorial of some kind there's not a reason to change that in the future, right? There's really kind of a way to create that structure and to create that sense of permanence and also really set a tone where if you want to start talking about different important names to the town and ways that we can honor it, we don't have to go around, you think about it, go on a bit of a tangent, when it comes to the naming the schools, now we have a bunch of PCCs who have renamed themselves. They don't have to go through any kind of renaming process, any legal challenges there. There are no other issues when it comes to the students and the sense of identity. If we're changing the school names now and then back to another school name and then possibly changing it in the future, like that sense of permanence really doesn't exist. But if we're looking at it from a campus perspective, we can really make sure that this is something that is papered all over the place. We have, actually I believe Tom Mercer suggested it, kind of saying, the stadium at the Horseman campus or, Franklin High School at the Horseman campus. We can get the name out there in a lot more places and in places that are potentially seeing a lot more publicity in a more permanent sense if we take an approach kind of looking at it from the idea of a campus or complex, kind of whatever the terminology is. I do think that the idea of kind of having a committee surrounding this, supporting it, kind of getting some community input, getting some input from other parts of the town, from other elected officials would be great. Again, with that narrow focus, really what is the name that we think is the best representation for, the campus or the complex or the land that these schools exist on, not an organization that's going to go back, not going to go back and say, all right, great, well, what are the best names for the schools? Or, our conclusion was that the school should be named as such. That's not really the target of a committee that, that I think would be successful. I think I would really focus on what is the best way to honor Horace Mann, how can we really get that community input from that perspective, and if we really wanted to go further, I know there's been conversations around some other names that are very important to this town, looking at that again from the kind of underlying ground or memorial on school grounds at the different complexes as the best way to do that, we can really kind of see some great successes come out of that. And again, with that kind of community input, having those public forums, having town council there, have the historical society there, so that we can, make sure that we are doing it right, but it also gives us time. And I think that's the biggest thing that we're looking at right now. We've really instituted quite a whirlwind of events when it comes to the redistricting and the budget process all got pulled forward. We have a lot of different things moving, with Colin, and Mike's efforts tonight, talking about all the different things around planning, for traffic and transportation. If we were to go now and kind of open up this idea of let's explore, names for the campuses, I think this can act kind of in parallel without disrupting anything. All the schools are established, the identities are starting to form, they're growing, they're getting the sense of self. The students understand kind of where they are one year to the next. The students who are in 5th grade, great. Their big moment this coming year, in my opinion, this is gonna be kind of cool, is you're that senior class of your grade, you get to help form what the next years are gonna be like. And that's it, like you're out. You're on to the next thing. For the 5th graders, you're on to the high school where the 8th graders have just done the same exact thing. But you have that sense of you're leaving something behind, and for all the other students, they know what next year is going to be. If they're at Lincoln, if they're at Washington, if they're at Franklin Middle School, they know next year I'm going to Franklin Middle School, or next year I'm going to Lincoln Elementary. instead of, all right, I wonder what school I'm going to next year. It also gives them that sense if they're going to start talking about some kind of mascots or colors or anything like that, you can just focus on that, right? Those are fun projects. Those are things you can do as a community, but when you have the other swirl, I think it really complicates it. So I think if we look at this as a subcommittee, kind of a broader reaching subcommittee with the school committee really leading it, I think that is something that's really important. This is something that falls back into our purview. But having it as, something, a naming for the campus or campuses, if we really want to broaden our scope, it gives us the ability to take our time and do it right without having to rush through and say, all right, school opens in September. If we're going to change the name by next year, we have to do it at a certain speed. It really says, all right, we can take our time. We can make sure we get all those inputs. If we have more feedback, if we have research to be done, if we want to find out what kind of monies can be allocated and what kind of recognition can be made, we can take every single step and do it right in the eyes of both the elected officials in town, in the employees, in the students, and also in the citizens of the town, to make sure that everyone is really on board, that when we do have that kind of final say and that permanent structure, in my opinion, it's something that everyone's really excited to stand behind. Thanks.
Thank you.
And I guess I just need some clarity here. So are we just asking, how do we want to honor, what's the process that we want to prove to honor the Horseman name, or are we including naming? I guess what's the scope? Because I think we need to help me define that.
And that's kind of where, one kind of the point of this discussion right now, so that a way I can kind of package something up that then can kind of come before us as a vote, to actually kind of say this is definitively what we want to do. But I think right now, kind of coming out of policy, it started with the idea of doing the Horace Mann campus. And so, but now it's just a discussion of, basically, if we're kind of following like what Dr. Griffith was kind of saying, having like an ad hoc committee that's looking at the campus concept. And so that way we're looking at, just based on those notes, I'm going to listen to everybody else and kind of package and all that together. But, what I would kind of hear from that is we would have an ad hoc committee, a member of town council, member of historical commission, and they would kind of begin the work to say, all right, how do we explicitly define these and name these campuses and also make them big? So that way, if we're starting with the Horace Mann campus, that, what's the process? Because it's more than just, we're gonna have a school committee vote and say, yep, that's what it is. Who we kind of talking to on the town for GIS to kind of have the map finding in there, so that way, Google Maps kind of shows it. And then where are we kind of going from, the boulevard banners,
Yep.
or some of the other ideas, town council in that letter had kind of talked about, reaching out to members of the State House along with the CPA money, but basically just the start of what are we looking to do? So that way, like up in the May 27th meeting, we kind of have a vote and say, all right, we're gonna create an ad hoc committee composed of, 3 school committee members, 1 member from this board, 1 member from that board, cultural, we got a couple of different folks that are out there. And so that in their directive is X, to establish the Horace Mann campus or to establish campuses.
So target, I think, to summarize what I heard, targeting the idea of naming the campus, the Horace Mann campus, with the focus being on how that looks, how the plans behind that. That's how because I think what the question, and Al, I don't know if you're asking the question on the process of what's the target decision? Is it to even do this, or has that decision been made and now are we looking to have a focus on? And I think both are within your purview. You could say, that the idea is the work is around having Horace Mann be the campus name, and then backwards plan all the things that would need to be considered for that. Or the alternative being that you have a discussion or a vote on what the goal is, but I think you also could, arriving at what's the charge of an ad hoc committee and having that be really targeted and focused on the goal in the end, as opposed to a bunch of different solutions that could or couldn't work. I think it can get lost. And I think there's a lot of perspectives on this. This is one of those things. Mm-hmm. But I think, your leadership, and I'm happy to come back to you with, whatever the target is for details on what you're looking for, or a process, but ultimately, I think having a target of what's the goal at the end of this.
Yeah, because I mean, the way I see it is, if we're saying the committee is, the decision has been made that it's gonna be the Horace Mann campus, and the committee is really just now execution, logistics of
Right.
what we're gonna do.
Yeah.
Whereas I think really the committee that we need to stand up is more of a committee around how we honor Horace Mann's name. So the campus could be an option that the committee comes up with, but I don't think coming into it and saying, hey, this is going to be a campus, now how do you market it and how do you socialize it? I think, what's the point at that point, you know? Because it's a foregone conclusion, it's a campus already. And that may not be the best solution.
Okay.
So I think if we keep it broad and just say, we want to establish a committee to explore how does the Franklin Public School System honor Horace Mann, and keep it open so that we're not saying all you can do is have a campus at that point.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so as was mentioned, before we discussed this concept in the policy subcommittee, I'm a fan of the campus idea personally. I think it makes sense to have a committee like with a particular goal in mind, but to my colleague's point, I'm also open to other alternatives, so, I mean, I think in my mind, having a committee to, with the goal of executing the campus idea, but then maybe they'd also explore other options and give some alternatives if that could also be chosen. But I think the campus idea is a good way to honor the Horace Mann legacy and history, him being here in Franklin, something we can take a lot of pride in. It's, rather than just having one school, he's got a whole campus, so I think that's pretty cool. But yeah, so I'm supportive of the concept.
Okay, thanks.
I agree that we could do this in a way that's more calculated and have input and take our time and do it right in a more permanent fashion. I just want to caution, this is our purview. So like, I think that creating an ad hoc committee to work on design and aesthetics and how to implement the plan and what grants to go after and what funding can be, supplemental to what we have going on. I don't necessarily want to, open this up to be sort of persuaded in a direction that maybe we otherwise wouldn't go. So I just want to, I want it to be a collective, but I think that I want like Lucas and his team to very much be part of that with us. So yeah, I'm open to, I think it's a good idea to put a committee together. And we haven't, we voted on this in subcommittee yet, but we haven't brought it to the full committee yet, just because it's still kind of being discussed in this way. So many towns do have Horace Mann schools. So I think it's like imperative that we own Horace Mann. Like, I think that we'd be doing a real disservice to the town if we don't try to wrap our arms around that legacy and make sure that we are sort of known for the Horace Mann. Towns are just naming their schools after Franklin, So that's the only thing I think in my opinion, I can't foresee a better way than doing it as the Horace Mann campus. But I think there's sort of nuanced details about do we keep all the other names and what's the boundaries and where can we sort of brand it and design. And luckily for us, we have somebody who's does that for a living on our school committee too with Erin, which is helpful. So taking advantage of that and really, giving our superintendent also some real input in this decision, because this has been a massive, we'll get into the superintendent evaluation, but I do think there's, this is kind of the fun part, so, yeah, That's all I got.
Yeah, I like the complex idea. However, as Paul said, we should take this to the community-wide, to all the residents with other options as well. So based on everyone's input, we should go move forward. That's all. Thank you.
All right, and online?
No, I don't really have any further comments. I mean, I think that, as we discussed last week, I'm happy with the idea of a campus, and then would love to see not only the schools, but the community really embrace the history of Horace Mann, if that's something that we want to push forward as a town and as a school district, to really make sure that as our kids grow up here as part of the district, they're learning about the history that comes from this town and the people that, really made a huge impact, not only here, but, far beyond its reach. So, yeah, just restating. For me.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure that, I think the general consensus is there, kind of looking at the idea of getting more input on this. I do just want to caution that, if we're talking about a subcommittee, really making sure that we have a clear path forward for it is very important. I think if we go back and kind of start unpacking everything, this is a very high risk situation where you have a lot of questions in front of you. You have a multitude of opinions, and I think we can end up basically stuck on the what we're going to do versus how we're going to do it. And that can just go on for the next 4 years. And if we continue down that road like that, basically we would do ourselves and Horace Mann a disservice because of it sitting in subcommittee for a year or 2 years trying to figure out what we're going to actually do. We have the same kind of uncertainty that we're concerned about with the schools, because the longer and longer that takes, and that is not forced to a vote in the school committee. That's a subcommittee trying to make a decision and support. The schools that whole time are kind of waiting with bated breath, trying to figure out what their future is going to look like if we have that kind of reopened up. We also have the chance that, with those impasses, if we're going to these meetings, and every single time we have the same exact opinion of, well, one group thinks that we should rename the school, one group thinks we should have a campus, another group thinks that we should be honoring, each one of the schools should be renamed. We don't go anywhere. And I think for us, a very important thing with this is being able to have a very specific scope, being able to really kind of go in and say, this is what we're targeting, what we're trying to do, and keeping it narrow where it's consensus building versus path building. And again, the kind of final point there is we want this to be a collaborative effort. This is something I think is kind of important. The joint budget subcommittee that a bunch of us were a part of is something technically, that's run by like town council, right? They chair it, they head it up. We're there at their leisure, very, very productive, very collaborative. That was great. But this is something that we're going to lead. And if we go into something where we're not entirely sure that what is going to be brought forth from that subcommittee is something that we see as palatable either to this school committee or potentially the next school committee, it really has that risk of kind of tainting that overall process. We're sending people out looking at it, and they come here and we don't think 4 people are going to support the what side of things that they may or may not come to versus the how. And that's where I think how is a lot easier for people to kind of consensus build and give up some opinions on it if we go back and really challenge the what and say, great, how far can this go? We don't have any kind of true guidance. We don't have any kind of real purpose or drive. I think that this might take a long time. I think we might have a lot of people unhappy, both on the committee, in the school committee, but then also in the community, because there's never going to be that kind of, great, here's the decisions being made. It's, everyone gets their opinion, which I think is fantastic, but we want to make sure that it's kind of opinions in a direction instead of just an all the above catch.
I was just reflecting back. I held a roundtable for educators in November around the reorg, and I had a slide up, and I took this from Eric Stark, who's actually online now, and it had to do with the continuum of decision making. And I was trying to demonstrate and communicate to the staff members who attended the meeting that there's so many decisions that we must make in leadership, and I consider us all leaders in this room. Steve, you're a leader as well in the community. But ultimately, every type of decision requires a different type of decision making. And on one end of the spectrum, it was completely open to, I'm just like, we have a problem of practice, and I'm looking for every single perspective. And then the other end of it is, I just have to make this decision, and I'm not really interested because it's, no matter what, I don't want to put you through thinking that your input is actually going to impact the decision. So out of respect for you, I'm not going to even ask you. So, and then there's everything in between, right? And I think this is somewhere in between, and I think there's multiple perspectives you could look on this. And I was thinking about analogous to, have you ever turned on Netflix and then it's like, I want to watch a movie? And then have you ever spent like 15 minutes like previewing every trailer, trying to figure out what movie? And then by the time you've finished like figuring it out, it's like time to shut it down and move on. There's like that could get that way. The last thing I'll say is just my experience is, if, you know, and you have varying perspectives, you all have your own opinion on this, and you have your a right to, you know, you've been put in the position you are in to represent your constituents and vote in all of these decisions with what you think is best for the district. When I think about a decision like this, I think about, it's analogous to, do you want to be focused on picking which mountain you're going to climb and having a discussion about which one, or do you want to set your sight on a mountain and then have people help you figure out how you're going to get there and what you're going to need to get it done? And I think sometimes it can be harder on people who want to be involved. The concept of collaboration and input is sometimes harder if it's too broad and you're getting too many different ways you could do something, because then you say no to 50 people, where if you set the target, so there's ways you have to look at this as a committee. If you set the target, yes, that does have an impact. I've set tons of targets in my career, but sometimes it's actually the most thoughtful way to do it, because you're being clear with people about, this is a direction I want to take, and then we're really looking for help on how do we actually get this done. And I think that's a different consensus building versus trying to figure out direction. So I offer that as just this type of decision, but I think what's inherent in this is you've all shared with me either individually or publicly around the idea of wanting to honor Horace Mann. I think that's like a baseline. I think this idea of the campus is clearly, as I listen to you all anecdotally, there's clearly support around this idea in some capacity in some way. And then I know some feel like, well, maybe that's one way, but there could be others, right? That's like on a piece of it. So I just would leave you with sometimes the idea of leaving with direction and a target is sometimes appropriate, and it gives clarity to folks who would want to be involved, and those who aren't interested are not going to involve themselves in any capacity. So I just would offer that as you go through this. I'm not trying to talk down or over-explain something, but I'm just trying to relate. This is one of those leadership decisions where you have to figure out what's the best course of action for something like this. But it seems like there's shared agreement on wanting to honor Horace Mann, and this idea has been floated. That's one aspect I would offer.
All right, thank you very much.
Sure.
Thank you all so much, I appreciate it. It's been nice. It's the first time in about like a year and a half that we've actually been able to kind of catch our breath, have a discussion, conversations, Paul, as you kind of alluded to. It's not something that's, you know, has to get done by tomorrow. You know, it has this deadline that if we don't, you know, do this, then we're hitting a wall. If we don't do this, then all of a sudden the principals aren't going to get picked and selected and sent out the whole rest of the superintendent. So it's this has been a great conversation. I appreciate it. And again, I'll kind of synthesize this information, and we'll kind of go forward from there. All right, so moving on to discussion only, item B, superintendent evaluation.
All right, I will make my way over to the rostrum. So I shared with you my superintendent evaluation evidence, and as this queues up, I just wanted to just express my appreciation to not only all of you as a committee who have supported and approved my goals specifically, but my goals represent the goals of the district. So what you see in this evidence is really reflective of the leadership that we have, the teachers, all of our educators. It's just the work is representative of that. So with that said, so tonight I will share the evidence. It reflects obviously our district progress, and then my leadership work that you have been witness to. Most of the more public discussions, but it does include some things that don't necessarily make their way to either a school committee or a direct communication or a subcommittee or some other area. So just to point out, I experimented with 2 new tools, Canva and Flipbook, which I thought would try to put a different spin and a little more, well, engaging, but also accessible. And I hope it's clear and I hope it's well organized. It was a learning curve and it took a lot more time, but I was already, you know, when you start something and you're like, you're already in, you can't back out now, so I had to see it through. So this is an attempt at trying a different medium for sharing information. So, and I want to thank Colin Boisvert for helping me, coach me through some pretty frustrating moments that I'm smiling about now, but they weren't very funny when I was trying to get this done in time. Just basically moving on. So you'll notice in this flip book, I tried to lay out just some of the pieces. I stand by this quote, right? You don't rise to the level of your goals, but you fall to the level of your systems. And I think that's been the focus of our work together over the last 3 years, is really looking at that. So basically, I won't read this verbatim, and I'm mindful of time, but basically the executive session in there provides you with just a high-level overview of the strategic efforts that we put forth this year. They're really rooted in instructional leadership, putting students at the center of our operational decisions, and trying to be as transparent as possible with our planning and our budget development process. As I mentioned, some key actions that you'll see the goal areas. There's 4 goals that you approved in November, but it also includes some of the key actions, the benchmarks, and then any evidence that I have. There'll be live links for you to dig in deeper, so just know that I'm not going to open up links in this presentation, but more orient you to the work. So as we flip forward, you can see the table of contents. It has just that information where you can get a sense of what's happening. This memo, this is typically my cover page from previous years. I've tried to build this out a bit, but basically it just talks through the legalese of superintendent evaluation, the job you guys have to do, what I have to do, and how this whole thing works. As we move on, goal 1 was focused on my year. I advanced my work this year through the Advanced Learning Environments Planner program. It's an accreditation. And I'd earned a national scholarship. I think I mentioned that. I earned the scholarship for this to be a part of this, and I'm in the 5 of 6 courses total. I'll finish over the summer to complete the work. At the end, I'll receive my accreditation as an Advanced Learning Environments Planner, similar to someone who would facilitate visioning around projects, building projects, redistricting. So I see this as the coursework that I'm learning is certainly helped to develop my skills, and I see that as an investment in the district as we move forward together, and I appreciate the support around that. I think it's directly linked to reorganization. I'm learning at the same time I'm making decisions. I'm the only superintendent in this entire program. It's all architects and planners and different people, so I'm in a unique position, and we have real work we're doing related to some of these pieces of the programming. So anyway, there's links in there. You can see I provided my report card. I feel like a kid. My report cards are in there with my grades. I also put some samples of the projects that we're working on. And if you guys could sign those, I'll bring them back to the teacher. Thank you. Anyway, moving on. Second goal was around instructional leadership, universal design for learning. You've heard about this. We've presented to you on this work and this framework. This is an area where we've continued to deepen the work. We've embedded UDL into the curriculum review process. We've worked with our admin. You'd seen some photos. If you look at the screen, you'll notice Katie Novak, who's the UDL guru, who visited and did a training with our entire administrative team, and then each of the principals has done their work within their buildings around supporting this particular goal. Also, the November PD Day, there was some ongoing work that reflected this work as well through the professional development. So in here, just to point out, you'll see a little summary of the work, the key actions process, the outcomes with links, and I did try to provide some pictures that I thought helped add a little color to the work. The third goal was around budget and fiscal management. And this process, we tried to be as transparent, strategic in our alignment, and collaborative as possible. We know the cost pressures and the funding pressures that we've been under, and trying to preserve our core services. So we provided some clear narratives to the public and try to connect the fiscal decisions to the reorg needs that we have spent many, many hours discussing at many different venues, whether it was through the Joint Budget Subcommittee or through your school committee meetings around budget. So this effort, I hope, helped build clarity and trust during what has been some really challenging budget cycles over the last few years. And you'll notice in there the budget book I included, along with other slide decks and hearings. There's plenty more. You could go to the website to see a lot of them, but I did try to provide a handful. I know what it's like to get hit with 100 different examples, and sometimes it's too much and it gets lost. So hopefully I've kept this with the right balance. Moving on to goal 4, it has to do with the facilities work that we're doing, the management of the reorganization. So as you know, this has been a full year, it's been over a year project where we've tried to tackle to make sure we have facility readiness and basically staff transitions, student placement, and configuration and design of how the schools will operate. Those are all part of the work. You've received multiple updates in various aspects of this particular project throughout the year. That will continue. I don't anticipate that ending at the end of the school year, but carrying into next year as well. And this has been deeply collaborative across all departments. Our school leaders, our union leaders, our municipal departments, as you know, even the example today with the town engineer co-presenting on traffic. There's just been multiple areas. So there was a boundary presentation, the staff reassignments, the FAQs, things like that that you have seen before, I tried to put together. So that's the 4th goal. And then it leads into the focus standards. So as you know, through previous superintendent evaluations, there's 4 focus areas. They're listed there in the book. And basically, within that, I have identified a few specific focus areas that we agreed to or you had approved in the fall. And basically, I provided a progress update on those focus areas and evidence. I've either linked it or referenced other areas where it's located in the document. And you'll see that for all 4 of the standards. I provided as much detail as possible. New this year, in addition to all the other pieces, is a glossary of acronyms. And thank you, KP. Thank you for catching my school committee and PD acronym. I messed that up. But ultimately, the acronym is in there just because I know we use EduSpeak a lot and tried to make sure that it was clear around that. Finally, just this document is just not a reflection of my leadership, but ultimately it represents the collective effort of our entire administrative team, our educators, our staff, our community partners, everyone who we have the privilege of working with in this district. And I just appreciated the thoughtful engagement through this whole process of going through this particular year. We've set some pretty lofty goals, and I'm working hard on behalf of the district and on behalf of our team to really see them through and appreciate the time to try to build a solid foundation for us to continue to move forward. So I'll stop there. I thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. And before we do that, I'm just going to kick it over to Vice Chair McNeil.
Absolutely. So yeah, Lucas, thank you very much for putting this together and just for the collaboration through this entire process. It's excellent information that you've put together for us. Thank you for the flip book. So now we expect all presentations to be in flip book after today, now that you've raised the bar. So yeah, just a little clarification for the education members, just for how we're moving forward. So we'll all be receiving from Denise Miller by tomorrow the Google form to fill out, the same as we did last year for the superintendent evaluation. We're asking that everyone complete that by June 1st, so we have just under 3 weeks. So please, take your time to go through the flip book and the evidence that Lucas has provided with us, evaluate what he's showing here based on the goals that we set and voted on in October, and answering the questions. There'll be opportunities for you to just give a grade, and again, you'll see, depending on the question, and then place for accommodations or recommendations. If you have any, it's not required, but adding a little detail and color is certainly appreciated. If you have some, it doesn't need to be for everything, or just some if you don't. Then, so again, that's due June 1st, a little under 3 weeks. The Superintendent Evaluation Subcommittee will be meeting 4 weeks from tonight on June 3rd. And then we'll be going over the results, which Denise Miller will be sending to all of us on the subcommittee in anonymized form. We'll be synthesizing information, kind of coming up with the summary, and then after that, I'll put together the report for us to vote on at the following June 10th full school committee meeting. So I'd ask everyone, if you have questions about either process or just general questions for either myself or Lucas tonight, it's totally fine. But if you have any substantive questions, I'd ask you to first take a look at the evidence and then send Lucas an email.
Absolutely.
Over the course of the next 3 weeks. So thank you all, and thank you to the members of the Superintendent Evaluation Subcommittee as well, who'll be helping me out.
Thank you very much. And then, yes, no, we'll do questions, comments?
My comment is greatly appreciated, Lucas. You set up a model very high. And did you really catch the fish, or are you just putting a picture there? Selling a fish?
Oh, the fish, yes. We had fish. That was at Parmenter. Colin, who's also leading the food service department, believe it or not, actually had Red's Best. He contracts with Red's Best. He's talked about this before, but he had the fish. Those fish were caught within either that night or the early morning and boxed and brought and driven, and that was fresh fish. So the students get to come through at the lunch period to actually see the types of fish, and then that day fish was served in the cafeteria from the same packages where these came from. So that was just a great experience. The kids were just, and they wore gloves, and it was just interesting to see people's interest in that as we went through, just to look at the fish.
Greatly appreciated, Lucas, and your team as well. Thank you.
I know you always say it's a team effort and everything, but I want to just kind of focus on like how great you've been for the district. I hear parents out there saying like this guy's single-handedly saving the town. Like I hear things that are just like, I wish you could hear some of the things in the public is saying. But I commend you, because I look at that advanced learning environment planner, and I was part of those listening sessions with what is it, Kessel? I forget their
Kessel Boost.
Yeah, Kessel Boost. And it's so like in your character, from what I know of you historically, to just like, I'm gonna go get this new, certification, and that's what you do. You figure out how to get it done, and you get it done. Similar to Colin, doing his different jobs. So it's what we needed in real time, and you're so actionable, and I think that's part of what I think has gotten you like to this point where you've really kind of gotten the community support, the larger community support. With budget, again, like I was part of these listening sessions with you there, and you really brought the community along, and you've done a massive service through your ability to communicate clearly and effectively in a way that I've attained significant knowledge about the history of Franklin, and I think that you've been instrumental in bringing awareness and changing minds for the larger community. And I credit you. I have the utmost respect for your predecessor, but your ability to convey information to those outside the academic community is commendable. And I know you're sort of self-made, and you've kind of been in the trenches, and you've kind of grown in the district, and I think it's just a real gift to have you in this way, because I think you're able to communicate in a way that's not so academic when the time calls for it, and I think that's been just a huge asset to the district. I don't think we'd be here without you, so I don't think sometimes you give yourself enough credit. So that's all I have to say. So.
Thank you.
Good review.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Again, thank you, Lucas, for putting all this together. We look forward to reviewing it and completing the evaluation and collaborating throughout the process.
Thank you.
So just one question about the documentation, and it may be me. I'm not able to access the supporting documentation. Are you all able to click the links?
In the flipbook?
Yes, flipbook or the PDF.
It should allow you to. If it doesn't, I will make sure that you have a copy that allows you to do that for
Okay,
sure.
perfect, thank you. Yeah, and it may be because I'm on the Mac, I don't know, but can you get to?
It might be how I saved it in the flip book.
Okay.
It might be
So
just
I
the
will-
PDF.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's not.
neither PDF or flipbook work for me, so
Oh.
that's why,
Yeah, it's not applicable.
okay, just making sure it wasn't me, okay, thank you.
We'll fix it.
Okay, cool, thank you.
Yep,
But yeah,
you're
no,
welcome.
looking forward to going through this, but definitely, great presentation for it, so, yeah, good job.
Thank you.
I've got like 3 hours at the subcommittee meeting, so we'll cover it then. Appreciate all the efforts.
Thank you.
And online?
Nothing further from me, but thank you so much for the presentation and looking forward to going through it.
And we'll say, thanks, I'm, incredibly impressed that you went and you created this whole new design, did the flip book, working with Canva. Like I said, there should come a time where you just start to kind of coast. Not there yet. And
Retirement.
So over 3 years ago now, when the school committee initially kind of offered you the position, I shared a story from the mental health task force meeting at the time that you were kind of running, and there was somebody had this idea about a program to kind of do, and then all of a sudden we had Jen Knight from Safe Coalition had the exact, this is the movie that we can kind of go and share, but it's going to cost some money. And then within a moment later, we had Representative Roy, who was there in the room too, said, we can make that happen. I can kind of go, I can get you, earmark some money, that they were able to go and put on this great film and had wide access to the entire Franklin Public School families. And at that time, I kind of shared it because of that connectiveness. And as my colleague kind of mentioned, the way that you bring this entire community together. And even at a kind of surface level, when you look at this book, when you take a look at every single one of the pictures, besides the headshot and maybe the one with the elephant, you're with people and you're with the rest of the community in every single one of these pictures. And I think it's just kind of a testament to who you are, the character that you have, and the way that you run this district. It's not exclusively by yourself, and you put a lot on your shoulders and probably a bit too much at times. But at the end of the day, you constantly are kind of working with the entire community, bringing people together, filling the council chambers with some great students to celebrate their success. And I just as a dad of 2 kids in the district, kind of take off that chair hat. I'm incredibly grateful and thankful that you're in this position. So I'm excited to really kind of dig deep into this. But thank you so much for all the work you do day in and day out for this district.
Thank you very much. I know, I would say my success is the team's success. I'm not just saying that because you said you wanted. I really mean that. Like, there's so many layers to this industry. This is just, everyone's in their own industry. It's complex, but this is complex work that really involves a full team, and we've been very fortunate to build a really strong team that represents this district. I think we have really good people, and we want to keep those people here, and I feel fortunate. So thank you very much, and I'm happy. Please email me if you have specific questions about anything, and I'll make sure that you have a document that has live links that you can access by tomorrow, so that you can look at that. Okay.
All right.
Thank you
very much. So too, you're going to get bonus points from me for not having mentioned that Emmett Smith story.
That was good. That was good.
I'm getting predictable.
All right, so now we have discussion on the item C, the FY26 budget executive summary, structural deficit.
Okay. So Ms. Malati, I want to give her some credit for putting together a budget document. It's basically like part 2. If you remember last meeting, I believe it was Mr. Charles that asked around, just specifics around what's at stake, and regarding our structural deficit if it's not solved, right, or if it is solved. So working together, Ms. Malati, Dr. Dutch, and Ms. Morano, Dr. Rogers have all come together to put together basically a summary document, and the front page looks very similar. Can we cue this one up, Tina? Basically, the front page is the budget summary that's been circulating for a while. It's okay, don't rush, we're good. I provided a printed copy on your desk, so just for the sake of the meeting. But basically, the budget summary, and I'll let John, do you just want to talk through for the community, just again, around the request?
Okay.
And we'll just kind of do a little dance here,
Okay.
kind of go back and forth.
Sure. Okay, so a quick recap on the FY26 budget request. The budget that school committee approved was in the amount of $80,395,338, representing 3.78 increase over FY25. Out of that 3.78% increase, 3.1 it's operational budget, and 0.68% represents the health insurance increase over FY25. It's important to note that the approved budget is contingent upon resolving Franklin's structural deficit of $3.8 million approximately. Do you want to go through the reorg? Or?
So I think we've covered the reorg at length, but basically the decisions we made to reorganize have created some cost avoidance in the tune of $3.1 million because we have consolidated 3 middle schools to 1 and 5 elementary schools to 4.
Yeah.
Yep. And obviously, we've talked about ECDC expansion. So as you move forward, basically, this budget represents preserving our class sizes. It restores some critical areas of staffing which we identified that were lost in the failed override situation we had in in June. It maintains services in our mental health area. It also, this budget, as we talked about earlier, reduces the fees that would get lowered as a result of having this budget fully realized. And ultimately, the curriculum and instructional resources that we have and some of the program improvements are all part of what you approved as part of that budget. If we look at what underfunding this budget would look like, you'll see at the bottom, it's likely, and we'll zoom it out a little bit, but basically high class sizes. We'd have to increase class sizes if we cut staff. That's how that works. You've seen that. Fewer co-curricular offerings. We've talked about loss of some restored or reallocated positions. Those user fees we talked about with the intention of, in the budget that was approved, reducing. Some of those would not be able to be lowered. We'd have to keep our fee structure where it is today, which is not where we want it to be. And ultimately potentially looking at increases in other fee areas. Rentals, things like that. And finally, our mental and behavioral health supports that we've put in place across the district, we've worked really hard over time. Mrs. Morano, I think back to 3-4 years ago when we received one of our recommendations was to look at our counseling model, increase counseling support where we could, and it's taken so much time to build it and then try to preserve it when the chips were down. It's like we've come so far and we're trying to preserve as much as we can, and we don't want to see that go away. But we'll hit a critical mass. I think that's really the end of the day. Not solving this, what happens? If you were to look at the next page, this is the new page. No, that's not the right one. We'll get it up. You might have to just reshare it. Okay. Oh, you have the delay. It's a 30-second delay. On February 11th, you approved the budget. If we walk through just some of the impacts, you'll see here, we tried to create the two scenarios of basically a funded budget and an unfunded budget. And basically, on the left side, you'll see the restoration of some of those classroom teachers, right, preserving class size, all the things that I've mentioned. We put some specifics in there around the fees related to, what? Okay. And if you look at, if we were to make reductions, basically, we account for 54% of the budget, the town budget. If we were to look at the reduction, I think it's been pretty clear through Joint Budget Subcommittee, we're about $2 million of that, a little over that. If you were to quantify that into staff, if we kept fees where they were, that's about 600,000. Now we're looking at about 1.5 million to have to cut. When you quantify that into positions, we tried to leave a range here because it's very dependent on the staffing and whatnot, but you'd be looking at between 15 and 20 positions. And we just went through a reorganization to optimize and reallocate to put our staffing ratios in a place where we feel like if we have a fully funded budget, we can operate and be successful. This would put us behind. This would put us in a structure, in more of a deficit. It also would mean that we'd have to look at some of those restored positions. We'd have to look at our after-school clubs and late buses, which we did build in. The question was asked to me by a taxpayer, hey, does the approved budget that the school committee approved include having clubs and activities running next year at the middle and high? And the answer is yes. If we have to cut 2 million, I can't guarantee that. That's just, we have to reset and look at that. That's not a threat. That's just a logical area we have to consider with all other areas and aspects within our budget if we have to do this. And then finally, if you look at the reassignments, this is a new bullet we've added, and it has to do with the trickle effect of when you have to make reductions and then you have to reassign staff. Sometimes that's not optimal, or now we've made a cut at a specific level, say it's the high school, and we have a department of teachers all teaching different subjects, and it's electives to APs. And now you've reduced someone in the department, so now you have to reshuffle. The class sizes go up, but now you have teachers who are teaching either a new course for the first time, or it creates a bunch of scenarios. There's a ripple effect of reducing staff that go beyond just class size. It's actually having someone maybe have to teach one course out of their subject area. There's all these other implications that we work through behind the scenes, and it would disrupt continuity. So I was asked to provide what would happen. I can't get into specifics. We do not know. We have not identified the who, but the idea is the what of this. We've tried to lay out with as much detail as is respectful to the staff members we have working within our district, but ultimately wanted to lay out what's at stake if we don't have a budget that is the amount that you've approved. And as I said, with the amount you have approved, we're able to move forward without having to further reduce positions as a result of budget, and then ultimately provide the preserve class sizes, provide extracurriculars, and have the model that where we've set our whole plan is based on providing that model. Anything to add, John?
No, I think I covered it all.
Thank you very much for putting this together. This is terrific information, and this will be posted on the school's website as well.
He already is.
Already is wonderful. And also too, just for folks at home, this has been vetted by the state, the Office of Campaign and Political Finance. So it's all, wanted to make sure whatever we are kind of going and putting out there is above board. And that happened just the other day, got the confirmation back. But have questions, comments, discussion? Start down here.
Yeah, I just had one quick question. I know there was a comment made earlier, and actually Ruth Ann was very helpful with this, talking about the impact of the busing fees, kind of looking at that, and essentially the concept of demand destruction, right?
Yeah.
Even now, looking at the $500 fee, understanding that we have that there to try and balance the overall cost, and I believe that's not even half the cost, correct, per pupil?
It is not.
Okay, so just for everyone's information, that $500 is less than half the cost to put a student on the bus. Would this be something that, and I'm not sure if people listening understand, we don't have to provide transportation at all after 6th grade, correct?
Yes.
So would that be a viable option where if we're that concerned about demand destruction, we cannot necessarily lower the overall cost, where we could actually strip out the opportunity to provide transportation, which is a significant cost driver for us, in areas where we don't have to? So like the high school, if we really needed to, if we were looking at it where we could not drop the costs, we know that at these higher costs for transportation, families are not necessarily interested in supporting that. But we still have, the bus seats that we've paid for, we still have the cost per student, which greatly exceeds what we're charging students anyway. Would one viable option potentially be just not offering transportation potentially at the high school level? You don't want, It's
I
not
wouldn't
really
recommend
fair.
that.
I know you wouldn't, but
I
what I'm
understand
saying
the
is
question. I do
if
understand the
everything else
question.
is out on the table, and if we're gonna be losing more and more to the policy subcommittee's point of,
Yeah.
if we're gonna have demand destruction and we're gonna just have a higher cost to be able to run those buses because people aren't paying those values or those costs, but we can't necessarily support it further, that is, we emotionally and then, you know, from from an empathy standpoint, it might not be necessarily the best path forward, but legally it is a viable option to just not offer transportation for something like high school, where then parents would be able to get the transportation on their own or coordinate elsewhere.
I think we'd run into access issues for students being able to access education if they don't have it. Is it legal? I can't answer that question in the moment. I also, we've worked really hard I appreciate the question because you're processing funding and what we fund and what it goes to and what we afford. I don't think I would want to, that would not be a recommendation I would have, just because I would want to make sure kids get to school. But I think, your point around it costs us more for buses than we collect in fees is true. Reductions, if we don't fund this budget, are gonna have to come from somewhere. Our strategy has been to keep fees higher and increase them. And I think we've seen that there is a bit of, you talked about demand destruction. There is a tipping point where it doesn't become worth it to do. I would not recommend that as a strategy, just to say it out loud. And I don't think that's what you're asking me. You're just saying, is this actually something that could happen? I wouldn't recommend it. I don't think that it would be, it would create an accessibility issue for kids to get to school. And then I think our attendance would suffer. And I think we'd have other issues on the backside that could be costly, could cost in other ways. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah.
But, and I think your point is very well taken, that there is a concern about, making sure that our students are able to access things, but I do want to make sure that people also understand this is something that is done by the district for the benefit of all.
Mm-hmm.
It is something that is done at significant cost, even with what we're currently asking parents to pay. And, there really is, and actually I did look it up, general laws say that we have to provide through 6th grade, special needs, disability, any kind of special access requirement. But outside of that, we don't. So for people who are really like, hey, this is so expensive, we're not gonna do it, or people who are very frustrated at, the overall costs and our budget, again, we're doing this to try and keep these fees reasonable. I think from what I remember, it's somewhere around $1,100 per student that we pay. At least that's what I remember from last year. So just to put in perspective, like really, we're trying to balance things out, and I can appreciate policy's perspective of trying to make sure that this is accessible for parents. As we laid out here in the summary, putting dropping transportation down to $387, putting a cap at 3 kids, that doesn't cap our costs at all. Like we still have the same, those 3 kids still cost $3,300 to put on a bus. That doesn't include the fact that we have a significant number of students who do get bused for free because of either location or any other, multitude of reasons. And all of that still comes out of the same kind of bucket. So I think as people look at these costs, as people look at these drivers for reasons to help support balancing this budget, to help support, really kind of making sure that we're able to do what we want to, understand how much of this is us trying to really help the students. How much of this is us really, kind of balancing that need for fiscal austerity and responsibility with what it actually costs and what people can actually front. And we are in this kind of interesting position where $500 is a whole lot of money. $1,500 is a whole lot of money if you have 3 kids versus having it capped out. But looking at the actual cost of the district and yes, I agree with you. It's not something you would recommend. It's not something I think is really viable, but it is a legal approach as if there is really no money to be able to support busing. That is an approach that can be taken if necessary. Not one that I think any of us are exploring. It's just that idea of, because actually I know this, my cousin's school, they canceled buses for middle school and high school. Couldn't pay for them. That lasted 1 year. No one was happy with it. There's an uproar. People had private buses. People were all, the car situation was insane. But I've seen it done. It doesn't end well. But I want to make sure that people understand really that is a very simple and kind of obvious situation that we don't want to get into, but it extends to pretty much everything else. We're not trying to do things to make money here. We're trying to do things to cover costs or to make sure that we cover enough of it that we can offer more to our students. Thanks.
So thank you for putting this together. I think this is exactly what folks need, is the facts from a trusted source versus a lot of assumptions. You know, for those that are on social media and different platforms, people are saying a while, you know, these are threats, and you know, and other people are getting information based off of what they've heard, but haven't had the documentation to support and say, hey, this is what's in writing and it's coming from the source. And I think getting this out there for folks that are, one, vested in the school system because they have children in it, they're educators, that's great, but this is also helpful to get in front of folks that are not associated and don't really understand what the impacts are. And they're hearing it secondhand from other folks and saying, no, nothing's gonna happen. Last time that they said they were gonna, you know, lay off 30 teachers and they only laid off 5. You know, I think like people just assume things, and having something like this will help ground people in reality to make an educated decision on, do they support the override or not? I hope they say yes, they do support the override. But everybody has their own decisions, but I think as long as we can give them the content to make an informed and educated decision, that's all that we can ask. This is great for the PCCs to share out, you know, so that it's not their words and their assumptions and their feelings, these are the facts. This is black and white, or black and blue. So it's just the content that it speaks for itself, and once again, people make decisions. I do have 2 requests though. First is, can we get this out on the district Facebook page in terms of like an image or something?
I think we received guidance that we can put this on our website for people to go to it, and anyone else can share it.
Okay.
As a district, I don't believe we can push it out
Okay.
further,
Fair.
because it could be perceived as a persuasive document using like material. That's why we're wording it in like, here are the facts around funded budget, unfunded,
Yep.
right? And as it relates, but we can provide information on the facts, and then it's up to others beyond us to be able to share them out. So.
Okay, great. Then for those that are watching live recording, I just suggest that you find this, and if you do support this override and you want it to pass, that you share this documentation with others, and not just, hey, here's the link, save it as a PDF, save it as an image, post it, make it easy for folks to read and understand, because while those that are invested in this, like us up here, we are making the time. There are many people that don't have the time, and if we don't give them something that's easy and digestible, they may not find it. So make it easier for your friends, peers, residents, whomever. So thank you.
Thank you all very much for your work in putting this together. It's a great distillation of a lot of information that we've gone over and repeated over the past, I want to say a few months, but probably almost a year at this point since the last budget. I think it's great for us to keep putting this information out there, keep reminding the community what the consequences are of not funding our schools, and like you said, putting out just the facts. Well, it's just the facts that if we don't pass the override, we're not going to have the same services in our schools. Just the facts that if we don't pass the override, we're not going to have the same services in police. Just the facts that if we don't pass the override, we're not going to have the same services in fire. Just the facts. Name any other department in town. It's just the facts. So, yeah, we'd ask everyone if you want to please continue to support a thriving Franklin and the services that we've come to know and love here, and help us make us the community that we want to be. Please go out and vote yes on June 3rd, and please take a look at this sheet if you haven't already, or refresh yourself, and also please share it with friends and family and community members and neighbors that may not be aware of it or need some clarification, or just want to share it as well, because it's important that we have well-informed citizenry that votes based on facts. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. This is super helpful. It stinks that you got guidance not to put this out, but they were overly cautious over there. So, because as a parent myself, running around working full time, if I didn't know this was going on, I'd be like livid. But I think the PCCs and us as a school committee will get it out. We'll get it out. The only other thing is we got a robocall from the town about the special election. I've had a number of parents say, are the schools going to let us know? Can they give us a reminder on election day? It's something that I've asked for correspondence from the OCPF on.
Okay.
To try to get a memo for you, because I think that that's a fair request. And I know that there's parents out there who are trying to get text bank lists to be like, I'll remind you. But, I think reminding people of the election isn't gonna be seen as persuasive. I've read some, but I'm getting just to cover our bases, I'm getting a written, opinion on that for the district, so. This is super helpful.
Thank you.
I've already forwarded it to people I know, to get it out, so thanks.
Before we move on real quick, so
Yeah.
you already reached out to ask that question?
Yes, I did. I'm
I
waiting
got it.
for a written correspondence. I have some correspondence, but it's from 2013. It says it's allowed, but I was like, can I have something more updated? Because we have a really paranoid town, and I want to make sure that everybody's feeling comfortable.
I got a to-do list for that, an email tomorrow, so I won't include that one if you don't need it. That's perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Lucas. Sure. Is it possible to add for this May 15 newsletter? Or?
Yep. Yeah, so I'll talk about that in the update, but yes, short answer.
Thank you. See, all our meetings, the folks out there, all our meetings, all these late night meetings, all comes to this is the bottom line. So it's not about you and me, it's about kids' future, it's about Franklin future. So hopefully, this will pass and restrain our value of Franklin. And thank you for Lucas and the team for making it so simple to understand for each and everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. And how about online?
Thanks for putting this together. If you could let us know where it is online, that'd be super helpful. Looking forward to sending it out to folks I know.
Awesome. Thank you. And yeah, 'cause this really is fantastic to kind of just distill this information. Because while I will say, last week's town council meeting or citizens' comments, a gentleman kind of spoke about that this structural deficit is a town-wide structural deficit. The override is to plug the structural deficit, which will impact, as my colleagues have said, every single department that's out there. This year, because we're in the school committee meeting and within our kind of purview and lane, it's talking about the over $2 million in cuts that may fall upon us if the structural deficit is not resolved through the June 3rd override vote. But take a look at the town's website, because as again as mentioned before, they list out every single department that what they would get hit. The number of cops that would be cut, the number of the fire, the 3rd ambulance, the cuts to DPW and facilities and the senior center and the library, every single department that's out there. This is a town-wide structural deficit and a town-wide, hopefully, solution to that issue on the June 3rd override vote. And I want to also, I know a lot of us are kind of talking about the idea of like the fees or the scare tactics, because I know last year, I'm sure others have kind of experienced this too. I had folks kind of tell me to my face that the raising of the bus fee or having football cost $1,000 was just a scare tactic. And as we've all seen, it's not a scare tactic, it's scary facts. And last year's failed override did not solve one problem here in Franklin. And it also has a horrible ripple effect. I know, Paul, you were mentioning a number of listening sessions, the joint budget meetings. We talked about like the cost of last year's field override in terms of when we kind of look at, 15 to 20 staff positions that will get cut. That's not the end of the story. Not only does it have a ripple effect that leads to higher classrooms, less support systems, but now the town of Franklin, the taxpayers, are also paying for unemployment benefits that are continuing on for quite some time after that. And then when we kind of talk about like the bus ridership, that if, we're unable to kind of reduce the transportation costs, then suddenly now that leads to a lower ridership number. And when there's fewer kids that are riding the bus, there's more kids that are being dropped off at the bus, and there's more traffic, and it has this continued ripple effect. All of the problems that we don't want to see are discovered through a failed override. And so I really hope the entire community is out there and is listening and is seeing this and knows that these are scary facts. And I know last week's town council meeting, Councilor Hamlin, amongst others, but was talking about, they have a meeting on June 4th, and they do not want to have to kind of go through the process that we all had to do last summer of doing a brand new budget, of figuring out which cuts are going to be made to which department and how that's going to impact every single one of these departments. Because another failed override will not solve Franklin's problems. It's just going to continue to exacerbate them. And I will say, kind of speaking from the school system, it's going to be our children that feel those consequences of a no vote the most. And so I hope everybody hears this and sees this and reads this and shares this. I'm so glad you were kind of talking about the PCCs going out there and sharing this information. Again, this is all directly on the school's website, been fully vetted by Office of Campaign and Political Finance to be above board. And so to please share that with every single friend, neighbor, organization that's out there. It is so critical and important to vote on or before June 3rd. So, thank you all very much. I'll get off my soapbox now. But again, really, thank you for putting this together. This is fantastic. All right. So, with that being said, information matters. How about the budget? What's going on there?
You're happy with what we just talked about? Yeah, budget subcommittee hasn't met since the last time we met, and we'll see if we need to meet pending June 3rd vote. So please, again, go out and vote yes in support of schools and town services. On the town council side, they'll be having their budget hearings next week, I believe, on the 21st and the 22nd.
Yes.
Yes. So if those who are interested, please attend those.
All right, fantastic. Anything more to add with superintendent about?
Again, I think we covered everything earlier. So as mentioned, the committee will be going through the evidence that Lucas presented this evening, take the next 3 weeks to fill out the evaluation. Subcommittee will meet on June 3rd, and then we'll be voting on the report on the June 10th meeting.
All right. What about policy?
Policy, we will continue to discuss the naming of the schools. We went through some sort of, with the redistricting, some safety kind of, like, just kind of getting fresh eyes on safety around schools, and not much changes there, nothing we had to bring forward. So, yeah, just really focus on fees and what's going to happen there, and the future of the Horace Mann campus and what's going to happen there. But aside from that, I think we're not meeting again until June 7th. So, yeah, that's about it.
And one quick thing too, that we also, Al, I think this was your idea from a while ago when we were doing the school committee calendar, talking about having that down at the town clerk's office.
Mm-hmm.
So I had spoken with her a week ago and loved the idea, and it's all also acceptable and above board. And so we kind of discussed during policy was of just kind of putting a packet together that would include the calendar, subcommittee, kind of a quick little synopsis of subcommittee meetings, a general kind of cadence to what, you know, you can expect in terms of the meetings, how long the meetings might go. And the moment that the superintendent stepped out of the room, we also said that the superintendent can write a welcome message as well. But ultimately, so that way, we'll have like a nice packet that will go out because, you know, our term here kind of expires, you know, in just a few short months. And then all school committee, town council, a few other local positions will kind of be up in November. And so for all those folks, I believe it's August, that like nomination papers can kind of be pulled. The idea being that you can kind of go to the town clerk's office, and as you request all the legal paperwork to run for any of these seats here on the school committee, you're also going to be receive like a welcome package that just kind of talks about a general overview. Maybe makes this a bit less intimidating, but also sets up realistic expectations. Because I was lied to when I first.
Lucas might have been too.
You know, how much work is this? So anyway, just we did discuss that, so I wanted to give you a quick update.
Thanks,
there.
yeah.
All right. Let's see. How about community relations?
So community relations, we met last week on the 5th. It was a out of cycle meeting. The reason why is we are going to try to get something out on the 15th ahead of the starting of early voting. So we'll get some content just in case folks do go out and vote early. At least they'll be informed and educated. Then following that, we will have our regular cadence, which is on June, I think it's the 6th. No, not the 6th, is it the 6th? The 5th, sorry. June 5th, which will be after the election, which will be our normal stuff. We are also planning for the strawberry stroll. We do have a really great submission for the calendar, so I think folks will love that. It's amazing how talented our students are. Just the thought process behind the designs and just really it's just building it out. And also just a great experience to say, hey, I put my work in front of the school, they selected it, and it's in hundreds of people's houses. So we'll have that out for the strawberry stroll on June 13th. Let's see what else. Oh, and the reminder for the 13th, Erin is actually the one that's took charge, and she's actually going to be putting that together. So we'll see what we can do to get that out. So that's it.
And joint PCC.
Joint PCC, we are next meeting on the 20th of June, so a week from today. May, sorry, not June.
All right. And yeah, maybe during that meeting too, if we could kind of include this document here, just to kind of go and share that out to all those in attendance for the joint PCC, I think would be wicked helpful. Absolutely. Okay, fantastic. SWAC.
Yes, SWAC had its final meeting this morning for this school year, and both the nutrition group and physical education group brainstorming the ideas for the next year, which will help for the upcoming exam. So,
Okay, fantastic. And mental health and well-being.
We are going to be at the Strawberry Stroll and working on a website specific that we should be able to add to the district that will have some resources for parents. And we actually have one of our advisors looking to start some group sessions that wouldn't necessarily be through the school, but would be just another resource. And maybe I could talk to Lucas about this offline a little bit, but yeah, just a lot of getting ready for the. I think that the theory that we're trying to go down the path is how can we kind of create coursework or groups around finding joy rather than avoiding stress, like seeking joy. Maybe like it's kind of like a sticker instead of a punishment kind of a concept. Which was floated around, which we like, and I did want to just kind of go to the order because I got this morning at Mental Health. This is a book that Tahina Pal, who's one of our student reps in Mental Health Task Force, got published, and it's a journey through poetry about mental health struggle and recovery called They Didn't Know, and it's really remarkable, and congrats to her, and This is why she's on our task force, because, yeah, so $10 on Amazon. I don't know if I'm supposed to be promoting it, but she's a student and we love her, we want to support her, so great job. So, yeah, we will meet one more time. No, we're not meeting, just Strawberry Stroll then, we'll be there. Hopefully next to school committee, we do have Scott there, that was able to put a plug in for that, so.
That's fantastic, thank you. And reorganization liaisons?
Sorry, wouldn't unmute. I met with Colin last Friday and Lucas to go through the presentation that we heard tonight.
All right, fantastic, thank you. All right, getting the home stretch, consent agenda.
I recommend approval of the minutes from your April 29th, 2025 school committee meeting as detailed.
All right, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as detailed?
Move to approve the consent agenda as detailed.
Second,
Second.
discussion, questions? All right, roll call, Griffith,
Yes.
Charles,
Yes.
McNeil,
Yes.
O'Sullivan,
Yes.
Sonpali,
Yes.
Gallagher,
Yes.
Callahan, yes. All right, go to the order. Opportunity to kind of go, discuss. Floor is yours.
If you go to the order, let's get the hell out of here.
Go out and vote. Find the One Franklin group, help them get the word out, talk to your neighbors, get a sign in your yard, help pass this override so that all the work that the district has been doing can be just, I don't know, lifted up instead of just having to go through anything near what we did last year. So that's all I got.
Aaron?
No, nothing for me. Thanks.
And, yeah, I'll echo. Really, it's just gonna be so absolutely critical. You know, thankfully with this, executive summary, you don't have to take our word for it. You can just go and take a look at the facts. Also, for folks too, if you haven't, you know, take a look at last week's, town council meeting during the council of the comments. There was a lot of great conversations. Also, kind of talking about these very topics, about, the June 3rd vote, and about how critical it is to solve this town-wide structural deficit. All right, citizens' comments. Anyone in the audience, in person or online, who would like to make a comment on an item not on tonight's agenda and falls within the committee's purview? All right, new business.
Okay, new business, you can expect, we invited the musicians who earned gold medals for state competition will be invited to come to the meeting. We also will have our retiree recognition. We do that annually in the second meeting in May. So we'll have folks who are retiring from the district come to the meeting if you've been a part of that before. We have an update on some of our district goals. I did cover a few of those areas within the superintendent evaluation, so we're going to try to streamline that process, but do report out on some of the district goals that we want to just kind of follow up on as we end the year. And we are looking at the Seal of Biliteracy students, those who have earned that, coming as well to be recognized for their achievements as well. So that's basically, I'm also baking in some time within the agenda if we need it for other business that may need to occur, but otherwise you can expect to see follow up on those.
All right, terrific. Now I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All those in favor? Second.
I was like,
I'm trying, all right, Griffith,
Yes.
Charles,
Yes.
McNeil.
Yes.
O'Sullivan.
Yes.
Sonpali.
Yes.
Gallagher.
Yes.
Callahan.